From the Boylston Public Library. Tomorrow's King Charles Coronation, and I couldn't care less. Marjorie is flying the Union Jack in Brookline. Where are you on this? Setting your alarm for PBS's coverage of the ceremony at 2 a.m., or are you on the right side of history, waiting for the inevitable end to this dated imperial dynasty?
I'm Marjorie Egan. Boston Lyric Opera's Omar tells the incredible story of an Islamic scholar who was captured by slave traders, brought to the U.S., and spent his life in slavery. We'll talk with the co-composer and conductor and hear from two artists in the show for a special live Music Friday performance in the first hour. Then from 1 to 2, it's Ask the AG with Andrea Campbell. She'll take our questions and yours. All that ahead. Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Rahm. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is scaling back the agency's reporting of data about COVID-19. NPR's Rob Stein has more.
The CDC says the end of the public health emergency next week means the agency will no longer be getting as much information about the virus. So the CDC will stop reporting how many people are catching the virus on a community level. But the CDC does plan to continue to report how many people are ending up in emergency rooms, requiring hospitalization and dying from COVID. Here's Dr. Nareef Shah from the CDC.
In short, we will still be able to tell that it's snowing, even though we're no longer counting every snowflake.
But some experts worry the change could make the nation vulnerable to again getting blindsided by the virus. Rob Stein, NPR News.
The New York City Medical Examiner has ruled the death of Jordan Neely this week a homicide. The homeless man reportedly was acting aggressively in a subway train Monday, and another man placed him in a chokehold. No charges have been filed. NPR's Brian Mann reports the incident calls attention to the problem of homelessness in New York.
New Yorkers clearly are worried about people on the streets and on subway trains who are experiencing homelessness or mental illness or addiction, despite the fact statistically that New York City is very safe. So, the questions in this case will be whether Neely did anything threatening that might justify this use of force by the other commuter. But the wider question here is, how does the city help people who are struggling with mental illness and homelessness before incidents like this occur?
NPR's Brian Mann. The White House isn't budging from its position that it won't negotiate over the debt ceiling. As NPR's Tamara Keith reports, President Biden has a meeting next week with bipartisan congressional leaders.
The president and congressional leaders will gather on Tuesday at the White House. But don't call it a negotiation. The U.S. could default on its debt as soon as next month if Congress doesn't raise the borrowing limit. But White House Budget Director Shalonda Young says President Biden isn't willing to negotiate spending cuts that Republicans want in exchange for raising the debt ceiling.
Congress needs to do its job. Tomorrow, they could put a bill on the floor to make sure we don't default. This is of people's own making. I could probably write the bill for them in 5 minutes. It's pretty easy.
Technically easy, but the politics are quite difficult. Tamara Keith, NPR News, the White House.
The Labor Department reported this morning employers added 253,000 jobs last month. The unemployment rate was 3.4%. The figures show the job market remains fairly resilient despite rising interest rates and trouble in the banking sector. At last check on Wall Street, the Dow was up 449 points. This is NPR News.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. State revenue collections for the month of April came in about $1 billion short of projections, a dramatic turnaround from a long-running period of budget surpluses on Beacon Hill. As GBH's Katie Lannon reports, lawmakers are trying to get a handle on what happened and where to go from here.
The major revenue dip comes as next year's $56 billion state budget and a wide-ranging tax break plan are moving through the legislative process. State Senator Patrick O'Connor is the ranking Republican on the Senate's Budget Committee. He says lawmakers' first move should be to figure out whether last month's shortfall is an outlier or a trend with lasting impacts.
To have our biggest tax month show that big of a loss that literally took us from almost $1 billion up to almost $1 billion down, we need to be well aware of what happened and adjust policy as need be moving forward, whether that be the budget, whether it be the tax package.
The Senate is expected to unveil its budget plan next week. At the State House, I'm Katie Lannon, GBH News 89.7.
A story in the Wall Street Journal this week tells us that former Harvard President Larry Summers met repeatedly and solicited donations from the late sex trafficker and financier Jeffrey Epstein. It's no secret that Epstein donated millions of dollars to Harvard during Sumner's tenure as university president from 2001 to 2006. The report says that even after Harvard stopped accepting donations from Epstein following his guilty plea in 2008, he and Summers continued to meet. 49 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Scripps News, committed to objective reporting that illuminates and informs the whole story. Available live with a TV antenna or streaming device. More at scripsnews.com/TV.
Houston Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio live from the Boston Public Library. I apologize to those in the library for not being there today in person. I'm a little bit under the weather, but we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. Hello, Jim.
Hello there, Marjorie. I hope you're feeling better. Andrea Campbell, the Attorney General, will join us from 1 to 2 for Ask the Attorney General. And in about 20 minutes, you're going to hear a couple of performances that are going to blow you away from this incredible, stunning opera I saw last night called Omar. But first, it's 6 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow, or 2 a.m. if you're into the PBS pregame show. Marjorie, set your alarm. History will be made across the pond. I hate that expression, across the pond, depending on who you ask. It's the first British royal coronation in 70-plus years, with 74-year-old King Charles officially assuming the throne of Great Britain. My question to you is quite simple. Who cares? Or maybe that's a bit harsh. All you Anglophiles, Marjorie, are you setting your alarms to watch this thing on PBS? What does it mean to you? For the rest of you level-headed Americans, this is your go-ahead to call us with your thoughts on what you'll be doing instead of watching the pomp and pageantry of a long-since-fallen British colonial empire. The number is 877-301-8970. And in light of the fact that we're going low rent in this first segment,
low rent.
As a side issue, very much related, do you agree with the roughly 14% of the UK that think Charles' wife Camilla should be called Queen, meaning 86%? Do not. Our number is 877-301-8970, which you can either call us or text us. So you totally into this, of course, Marjorie?
Well, I find it odd that you would call it low rent, Jim, since they probably have billions of dollars over there.
They do.
So that would say they're in the high rent district.
Do you remember when Queen Elizabeth, speaking of that, applied for fuel assistance available to low-income Brits?
You know, everybody gets down their luck from time to time. I guess
yeah.
the Queen was having a difficult time. But you know, I take a lot of grief from my family members and all Irish and friends when I say something nice about the royalty, because they did horrible things. The Brits did to the Irish and to people all around the world.
They did.
But you know, it's kind of like a good coronation. I've never really seen one before. It's kind of like a good funeral. You know, there's a lot of pageantry involved. I mean, you know, they have a special name for the police detail. It's the Operation Golden Orb,
that's
and
fabulous.
That's in reference to some.
Didn't you go to Diana's funeral, by the way?
I did. Went to Diana's funeral, and that was really something. I mean, they have all the horses come out and these carriages that are hundreds and hundreds of years old, and the king is going to sit in the 700-year-old chair. Did you read about this one?
Nope.
It's so important to have a chair. It's got its own chapel in Westminster Abbey because it's old. There's something about the pageantry. It's
how much
like
this is costing?
It's costing a lot of money.
$125 million. Do you think the people of Great Britain could use $125 million?
You know, I mean, a lot of young people are sick of this. They don't want any more monarchy. But most people in Britain want the monarchy to continue. So get off their back, Jim. This is their big day. They've been lining up, camping out. It's raining. They're camping out in the rain. They're ready for this whole thing to start. And, you know, I mean, Charles is not the most inspiring guy of all time. No. But apparently, since the Queen died, his popularity has increased. You know why?
No.
They like to have somebody in charge, Jim.
Okay. 877-301-8970 to text or to call. Now, I do have to admit, before we get to the callers, the one thing that does appeal to me is something you and I discussed on the radio maybe 20-plus years ago. It was called Tampon Gate. Could you explain to people what Tampon Gate was?
Okay, that's Prince. As people know, as Prince, he was the prince then, Prince of Wales. People may know that Princess Diana said in a notable phrase that from the very first day there were three people in her marriage.
She did.
It was Charles and Diana, and then Camilla Parker Bowles,
correct,
the woman that Charles was in love with, but he couldn't marry her. You know why?
No, I do not.
Because she wasn't a virgin.
And
Jim.
she was married, wasn't she?
Well, I don't think she was married at the time.
Oh, she
wasn't.
Okay.
Got married later. No,
Okay,
she was not a virgin.
My apologies.
And as everybody knows, Diana had to go to the royal gynecologist to get signed off on that front.
Well, that's good.
So anyway, he was in love with her before he got married, but he was pushed into getting married by his father, Philip, who said, "Hey, you gotta create the heir and the spare here." So he married young, naive Diana, and as everybody who knows, who saw The Crown, and lots of us did, she was out of her league from the moment things began. The marriage did not go well, and in a taxi, I believe it was it couldn't have been a taxi. He was the Prince of Wales. In whatever vehicle he was riding in, he was overheard either texting or saying that he wanted to live in Camilla Parker Bowles' trousers.
Trousers, yes.
Indeed, he wanted to be her tampon.
No, he did not. He said he wanted to be reincarnated as her tampon. That is what he did. Now that has some appeal
to
me.
Jim?
What?
It's true love. True
It
love.
is,
There you go.
apparently it is.
Any man who says those kinds of things, I mean, absolutely, there's no question about it. He was smitten from the word go, and he's still smitten today. And instead of being married to the beautiful Diana that everybody misses.
Oh, don't do this sexist thing. Don't do this.
He married an older woman.
An older woman.
She was the love of his life.
It's his love of his life. It's all that matters.
That's right.
And he wants to live in her trousers. Did we mention that? 877-301-8970. By the way, we're joking about this. I am appalled by this whole thing. In light of the history of the monarchy.
You're appalled by lots of things,
in light
Jim.
of the fact that it is $125 million. In light of the fact that it is totally anti-democratic. But Marjorie, and we're going to talk to Sue O'Connell at noon. Sue O'Connell's wildly into this thing, too. Let's start with Luke in a car. Luke in a car, you're on Boston Public Radio with me, Jim Browdy, and Marjorie Egan. Hi.
Hey, guys. Long-time listener, long-time caller.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's up?
So I agree, but I have to say that I've hit a saturation point with hearing about all the amazing things that people are doing out there. Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, athletes, even people doing really amazing things. It's kind of refreshing to hear about an entire country that celebrates people who, as far as I can tell, are doing absolutely nothing.
Beautifully put. Well, Luke, don't go away. Marjorie, why don't you make an argument that they're doing
Luke
important things?
has a very good point. They've achieved nothing. They just happened to be born into this family, So they didn't really excel in any kind of thing. But I tell you, I think the Brits just like the pomp and the circumstance, and they make a lot of money off tourism. People like to go to Buckingham Palace and see the changing of the guards. We'll see all those palace guards in action today and all the horses and all that kind of stuff. I don't get it, Luke, but they seem to like it. So what the heck? I'm not going to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch this thing start.
What were we going to say, Luke?
That.
What?
Well, I mean, that's right. It seems like over there, from this side of the pond, it seems like it's a party that everybody is even for some of the people who are doing, they don't even care why. But what has Musk done for me?
Well, I don't know if you're aware that Musk is not being carnated tomorrow. Are you aware that it's Charles, Luke? I think you're confusing a few titans. But thank you for an excellent call. We appreciate it. By the way, a ton of people on YouTube are posting. They're wishing you a speedy recovery.
Thank you.
You're not that sick. You're just a little bit under the weather, right?
That's right. That's
okay,
right.
Fine.
Just slightly. I'm fine.
877-301-8970. You should, by the way, even if you're in favor of this, like Marjorie, I'm not going to crush you like a bug. Don't be scared. Call in. I think a lot of Americans are going to get up, and a lot of people are really, really into this thing.
Okay, now here's a perspective that we haven't heard before. Lori in Marshfield is watching for the pageantry, which I get completely, and the fashion. Nobody has hats like those Brits. I tell you, they've got the most. These women wear these enormous, enormous hats.
They do.
And Mark from Newton, this isn't very nice, but I'll read it anyway. If I want to see horse faces tomorrow, says Mark,
no, don't read that.
I'll skip the Coronation and watch the Kentucky Derby.
It's not nice. It's not nice.
Well, who's he talking about?
Well, obviously, we know who he's talking about.
No, we
it's
don't.
Not nice. Yes, we do.
It could be a lot of people. It could be a lot of people he's talking about.
She's referred to often that way. It's not nice. So
okay, I don't think
we
she
shouldn't
looks
have read
at all like a horse.
Well, good. I'm glad you read it then.
I don't.
We got to take a break, Marjorie, thankfully.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We're talking about Jim, for someone who seems to not care about the Brits, spends an awful lot of time talking about how he doesn't care.
That's a very good point. That is a very valid
for the Brits.
point.
But King Charles is going to be coronated tomorrow.
He is.
And we're taking your calls and texts and asking if he should just be swept out of Dodge. You're listening to Boston Public Radio.
Let him go get a job. I mean, how about that? How about a job?
Well, he has a job, Jim. You know what he's been good on?
What?
Climate change.
Yes. And by the way, Diana, you taught me when I was ridiculing her, was fabulous on landmine stuff.
She was.
Remember when she held the hand of that little kid?
Yes.
Who had AIDS. Am I not correct?
I'm telling you, people were crying their eyes out at her funeral.
Fine.
877-301-8970 is the number to call us or text us. You're listening to Boston Public Radio. We'll be right back.
If you listen to Boston Public Radio 3 hours a day, that's 15 hours a week, 60 hours a month, and 720 hours a year. Maybe it's time you pitched in. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
Okay, yesterday, our prize for giving $10 a month as a sustaining member was the Smug Mug, the famous Smug Mug, which has a very smug picture of Jim on it.
Does.
Today is my second favorite gift, the Eton Crank Radio. This is this unbelievable radio, which is a wonderful thing to have in general, but it's a particularly good thing to have if there's a hurricane or a blizzard or somehow you lose your electricity, because you can charge your cell phone on it. You can charge things on it. It gets the National Weather Service. It gets AM and FM, multiple power sources. You crank the Eton radio's hand, and that's how it creates its power.
Want me to crank it for you while you're talking?
Yeah, crank the thing.
Here it is. It's right here.
It gives solar power.
I got
you don't need batteries.
No, that's it.
It has an LED flashlight built in. It's the perfect emergency radio to have, and you can get. Plus, it's kind of attractive. It's red and white, right, Jim?
This one's white, but okay.
Oh, that's just plain old white.
That's
okay,
fine.
lots of them are red and white, signifying emergency.
Good point.
And you can get that for $10 a month or $120 all at once. $10 a month enables us, or being a sustaining member, you can get more than $10 a month if you want. But a sustaining member enables our budgeters to plan for the coming year. So the deadline to get the Eton radio is when our show ends at 2 p.m. today. You know why? Because we've been such consistent friends, stalwart supporters, Jim, of the Eton Crank Radio. That's why it's only available till our show ends today. So here's the deal. You can call 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
Let me read a couple of comments from people who were kind enough in the last 24 hours to make contributions. Listen to Nancy from Cranston, Rhode Island, or as you would say, Cranston, Rhode Island.
Cranston.
I live in Rhode Island, but I listen to Boston Public Radio because of Jim and Marjorie. That would be us.
Thank you.
I tuned into them one day, and I became a Boston PR listener for life. Now, here's a more typical comment. This is from Zoe in Barrington.
Mm-hmm.
I listen as often as I can. I love Marjorie, and Jim is okay, too. So it's not exactly a ringing endorsement, but that's okay.
We get those a lot.
888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. As we always say, one of the great myths about public media is that the vast majority of our money comes from the government. In fact, more than 70% of the funding for GBH comes from individual listeners like you. If you like what our colleagues do on the radio station, if you listen to it, if you support it, now's your chance to show it. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBHnews and facebook.com/GBHnews. We're talking about the absurd coronation of King Charles that's happening tomorrow morning at 5 or 6 a.m. Whether you're into it, if you are, why, like Marjorie is. If you're not into it, like me, you can just sort of parrot what I said. And by the way, if there's any guy out there who is ever used as an opening line with a woman, I'd like to be reincarnated as your tampon. We'll pop you up to the top of the list and take you out of order. Where do you want to go, Marjorie?
Well, I want to read a text because it fits into the sound I'm going to play. Charlene from Natick, I'm not watching any part of this, anything to do with coronation. Perhaps I would if Meghan Markle were there, but the dynamics of that family are poisoned.
I agree.
And what I'd like them to do is sell all the tiaras and invest in those countries that they've decimated, the cultures and people who still live in poverty. Now, I read her for a couple of reasons. It was a very good text. And also, we know, of course, that that Meghan Markle is married to Prince Harry.
He is.
And Prince Harry
She
wrote
is.
this memoir, The Spare, that was topping the bestseller list for weeks and weeks and weeks. So if nobody's interested in them, Jim, somebody was awfully interested
Apparently
in that
so.
book. Well, anyway, in his memoir, he writes he didn't, and this is pretty sad, he didn't fully believe his mother had really died until he was about 23 years old. He spoke with it to Anderson Cooper on 60 Minutes, reflecting on his doubts as a kid.
You didn't believe she was dead?
For a long time. I just refused to accept that she was gone. Part of, she would never do this to us, but also part of maybe this is all part of a plan.
I mean, you really believe that maybe she had just decided to disappear for a time?
For a time, and then that she would call us and we would go and join her. Yeah.
How long did you believe that?
Years. Many, many years.
Can I tell you something? He's another grifter. He should get a job, too. Let's go to Nick in West Hartford. You're next to his. I mean, what has he ever... I'm serious about this. Do you see the thing? We want our privacy as they're on with Oprah on 60 Minutes or whatever
Jim,
the hell it is. What?
He served in Afghanistan.
I appreciate his service. Nick in West Hartford. Let's take some calls because we have a pledge today. We're tight. Nick in West Hartford, you're next on Boston Public Radio. What's your deal?
Jim, as per usual, I'm with you on this one.
Thank you so much, Nick.
I have family over in the UK, and I'm going there later this year for my honeymoon and everything.
Oh,
and
great.
My family are primarily teachers.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely disgusting that this country is spending over 100 million pounds of the country's money on this just absolute show for someone that no one really likes. But beyond that, what a sick system to have a hereditary monarchy that bless these
Nick, you are my
anointed
guy.
few with the ability to rule. Like, absolute garbage. If my kid can't be everything he wants to be in a country, it's garbage.
Nick, can I tell you something? I admire you because you always call and agree with me. However, I have to say your teacher relatives are a little selfish. The fact that they are worried about their salary more than 100 million pounds spent on the monarchy, the coronation, is really a sad story.
Oh, I never thought of it that way.
Thank
Jim.
you.
You're
That's why
so
I'm here.
right.
Yeah.
Nick, thank you for your call. Say hi to the family for us. 877-301-8970. Do you ever step back for 10 seconds and say how insane this is? How insane this was? Not just the current. When what's her face? When Elizabeth died, we talked about the colonization of the world and the oppression everywhere, despite the fact that people like her and her corgis. I mean, enough of this already, right?
But this happens almost in every country, in every big historic event. We have read a million times about how, no one goes to the Catholic Church anymore. The Italians couldn't care less about the Pope. They just can't stand it. Then
Except in Africa and South America, they go.
Well, then the last Pope dies, and I happened to be over there because one of my kids was doing the junior year abroad thing. And I happened to be over there, and you could not even get into St. Peter's Square, that whole semicircle, which fits, I think, 250,000 people, because it was so crowded. The subways were backed up. They had cops down in the subways making sure things didn't get out of control. People trying to get on
You're not
subway
being
trains.
honest about this, by the way.
It's the pageantry,
You're not
Jim.
being
It's
honest.
the pageantry.
What were they doing at St. Peter's Square that day?
They came to see the new Pope.
No, they were giving out complimentary pigs in blankets. You know that. You told me that. 877-301-8970.
Did you see the text from, I think, Blue Moon Rising,
no.
who said that Charles... You don't want to read that one?
Sure. Why? What did he say?
Charles will heretofore be known as the Tampon King.
Let's not read that. Helen in Rhode Island, you are next on Boston Public Radio. Welcome to the show, Helen. Hi. Helen? Oh, this is a good connection.
That's not a good one.
Okay, Helen. Thank you very much. Helen, we're going to put you on hold. We don't have much time. We'll try to get back to you in a second. It's a bad connection thing.
Here's what Jim from Manchester by the Sea says. I love when John Oliver said, the royals are to Great Britain what Mickey and Minnie are to Disneyland. I like that, Jim. He compares them to the Kardashians, only less attractive, rich, dysfunctional, and live a life most can only dream of.
By the way, Jason texted from Wellfleet and said exactly what I have been thinking, which is Marjorie is lying. She's lounging in a hotel room in England, waiting for the coronation. Deb in Rhode Island. You're also in Rhode Island. Hi there, Deb. Welcome.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Listen, you haven't even talked about Andrew.
Oh, Andrew.
Andrew. Yeah.
The Epstein guy.
He got in trouble.
Forgot.
I hope you're going to get to that, but I totally agree. The monarchy is dead. Come on. Too much money being spent. And as far as commitment goes, he'll always be the Rottweiler to me.
Nicely put. Deb,
that's what Diana called her. Diana called her the Rottweiler. Yeah.
By the way, we haven't talked about Andrew, who's credibly accused of forcing sex on an underage kid at Epstein's compound, wherever the hell it is.
Learned
Didn't
that
he
a lot
pay her
of
off,
people
by the way, too?
were at Epstein's compound.
Did you hear the Larry Summers story today? Former president of Harvard, former Secretary of Treasury.
Yes, I heard the
news.
news.
A little troubling, I should say. We have time for one more call because it's pledge and it's whatever. Where would you like us to go back in Brighton? You want Sue in Framingham? Thank you for the call. Welcome. Sue.
Hello.
Hello.
So, hi.
Hi. Hi.
So I'm about to sound very shallow, but
it's okay. We're shallow too.
I'm shallow. Yep.
Go ahead.
I have followed and loved the Royals for 50 years.
Well, you are very shallow. Yes. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And understandably, the cost and whatnot, but I actually applaud the historical sticking to history and regardless of the money.
Yeah.
And here in America, we disregard history and take monuments down and whatnot. So I get it. I understand all the reasons why not to.
Sue,
but
what monuments other than of Robert E. Lee are we taking down in this country? Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One or none, but I'm just saying that there is history to be seen
I know.
here,
You're
and I
probably
don't
right.
think it.
There's a point. By the way, I will give you part of that. There is history, and history does matter.
We're talking about things that are thousands, close to 1,000 years old. I mean, some of these stuff they're hauling over from Jerusalem and all that kind of stuff. There's kind of a continuity to it, Jim. A beautiful seamlessness.
We're done. That's it. I can't take this anymore. Let's take a break. Now let's move on to something that really matters.
Okay. We're not talking about the coronation anymore, although it's your idea to talk about it. But we can talk about it on Monday after we've all seen it.
No, we're not going to talk about it Monday.
Anyway, right after this pledge break, earlier than usual.
We're going to talk about it today either, actually.
No, we're going to talk to, who are we talking to next? We're talking to Sue
The
O'Connell.
performers and leaders of Omar, this brilliant production I saw last night, are joining us right now.
My mistake. Earlier than usual, Live Music Friday. You're absolutely right, Jim. We are talking, you're going to hear some singing from the Boston Lyric Opera's Omar. You are not going to want to miss this. Spectacular. Right after this next pledge break, you're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Think about it. For 3 hours every day, you get to hear thought-provoking conversations on local, national, and international issues for free. It only happens with your support. So please support your Boston Public Radio listening by calling 888-897-9424 or giving online at gbhnews.org.
Yes, I can. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org is the number to call to join us in our pledge this day. And we have a very special gift today. It is an Eton emergency crank radio. You make a $10 a month gift on our sustainer plan, and you get the Eton crank radio. I just said how much I like this thing because it's an emergency. It's an all-purpose emergency operation kind of deal. LED flashlight, way to charge your phone, other power sources. You just hand crank it and it powers up the radio. It has solar power, so there's no need for batteries or anything else. It's really neat. But I want to mention before I hand over to Jim here that we get a lot of nice text messages from people who call up to donate. And a lot of them talk about how they listened to us during the pandemic, which makes me feel really good. Pandemic was a tough time for everybody. And this is Laura from Hopkinton who says that Jim and I helped her get through the pandemic, which is absolutely wonderful. Lindsay from St. Cloud, Minnesota says that they've moved to Minnesota after living in Boston for 10 years, but they still listen to us from out there because they're a little homesick, and it reminds us of Boston. William from Middletown says he cannot wait to get his Smug Mug, and a lot of you might be just as anxious to get your Eton crank radio because for a hurricane, for a loss of power, for whatever happens when you might need an emergency method to charge up your stuff, the Eton Crank Radio is your deal. Plus, it gets a National Weather Service channel. 888-897-9424 is the number. gbhnews.org is where you can give securely at our website.
Think about it. If you're saying to yourself before you make a donation, well, what do I get from this station? Well, this afternoon, 1 to 2, the Attorney General is going to answer your questions for an hour. In the next week or two, the governor will be here for an hour. Then the mayor here for an hour. In about 2 minutes, you're going to hear some of the most stunning performances you have ever heard from Omar. You're getting that here. I think this is a pretty good value, and you should probably belly up to the bar and do what you can. The number is 888-897-9424. You can give online at gbhnews.org. And as Marjorie said, for $10 a month to $120 all at once, you get what many people call the Swiss Army knife of radios, because it does so many good things. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library. I'm Jim Browder. She's Marjorie Egan. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. This weekend, the Boston Lyric Opera is staging a production of the acclaimed show Omar, following the incredible and incredibly overlooked life story of Omar ibn Said, an Islamic scholar ripped from his home by the U.S. slave trade in the 1800s. I saw it last night, and while at times it is hard to watch, it is beautiful and inspiring at all times. Joining us, by the way, Said went on to create the only known self-account in Arabic written by an enslaved person in the U.S. Joining us at the interview desk are Michael Abels, who composed the opera along with Rhiannon Giddens. You've heard his work composing scores for the great films by Jordan Peele, Get Out, Nope, etc. Michael Ellis Ingram joins us too. He came from Germany to conduct this weekend's performances. Sadly, tickets are sold out, but we have some breaking news on GBH, which is that our sister station, CRB, will be recording the performance for an episode of CRB in Concert that will air in the fall. In a minute, we're going to be joined by Sierra Bird, one of the two performers who's with us tonight, who is just otherworldly. But joining us now are Michael and Michael. Michael and Michael, pleasure to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
I wanted to mention to you gentlemen, I'm not feeling well today. That's why I'm not there in the studio, and that's why I couldn't see your performance last night. But Jim, on his way home, called me. He was just going on and on and on in awe of what he saw. So congratulations to you both. But let's start with Michael Abels. Tell us about something I'd never heard of, the story of Omar, and tell us when you first heard this story.
Well, I had never heard his story either, and Rhiannon asked me to collaborate with her, and she's an amazing artist, and I agreed even before I really knew what the story was about. But as I was getting to know it, I was just amazed that his story hasn't been out there, and so it's been a really great experience for me to learn about him as I'm writing about him, and I hope that this work is one that just brings his story to people on a whole nother level.
Michael Ellis Ingram, what drew you to this incredible story?
Well, I actually heard about the opera when Rhiannon first got the commission several years ago, and it kind of blew my mind. So it was an amazing folk musician and researcher joining into the world of opera on a story that's never been told on the operatic stage. So it enthused me, just the prospect of listening to it. And then when Boston Lyric Opera gave me the call, I said, I would be happy to sweep the floor. If there's any way I can be a part of this
You do a
production.
little more than sweeping the floor, I should say. Michael, I'm Michael Abels. I'm late in life to opera, but now I'm all in. Were there moments when you first got the call from Rhiannon Giddens and you said to yourself, I'm not 100% sure this works as opera, or were you bought in right away?
I was bought in right away. I've always wanted to write opera my whole life, and I saw it as a huge opportunity. And his story is opera needs stories that are larger than life, that speak to the human experience. And even though on the surface, his story, you would not say, oh, this makes an opera. Rhiannon, through the libretto, through the lyrics that she's written, has found the soul of his story. And it's through that we understand who he is as a person and what his struggle was. And that's what makes it the experience that it is.
Michael Ellis Ingram, without giving it all away, tell us a little bit more about Omar's story. What was it?
Yeah, so Omar was born in the same year as Beethoven, coincidentally, 1770. He grew up in West Africa, in what is now called Senegal. He was a man who studied the Quran for decades. That was his passion. That was the focus of his life. And he was captured at the age of 37. He was enslaved, and he was brought to the United States on one of the last legal slave ships in 1807. And he lived the next 50 years as an enslaved man. And he had first a very cruel master. He fled. He was imprisoned. And in his prison, he wrote Quranic verses in Arabic from memory. And of course, no one in that place and time in the Carolinas had ever seen anything like that before. So he ended up at the plantation of a slave owner who was not as cruel as the first. And yeah, that's how he lived.
Well, the great
rest
part of that
his life.
story for me is the second slave owner is a devout Christian. And Omar is a devout Muslim, obviously, and the interaction of that in the second act to me is just otherworldly. And can I tell you something? While I love talking to you guys, I really want to hear Sierra. So can we include her in the Sierra Bird, where are you? Do you want to walk up to the mic there for a second? She's having a drink of water. She plays Fatima, the mother of Omar, absolutely brilliantly. Sierra, it's great to have you here.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Marjorie.
Yes.
Hello.
Oh! I thought we were going to have the. I thought we were going to have the song.
No, we're going to talk
give us
to
a little bit. Tell us a little bit, Sierra, about the kind of spirit Fatima and her son.
Yes, of course. So my character, Fatima, is Omar's mother. And in Act 1, Scene 1, there's actually a raid on our village. And warriors come in and they pillage the area. And I'm actually killed in that scene. And then after that, Omar is taken away to be put on a boat, obviously, to go through the Middle Passage. And I decide to forego glory and follow my son on that journey to be a guide to him and to look out to him. And in this aria, I just kind of mourn for his state and encourage him that no matter what happens around you, I'm always with you. And I also sing this to him before I encourage him to escape to Fayetteville, North Carolina.
But you're going to sing My Son, Omar in just a second. Before you do, very quickly, what is it like? It seems to me, I've seen a lot of shows, but being in it, with the spiritual, I'm not a spiritual person at all, and I was uplifted by this damn thing. What's it like they're laughing at me, and you should, it's fine. What's it like being in this production?
The first word that came to mind is life-changing, because when you do an opera that is centered around faith, it makes you think about your own. And I've taken a lot of time not only to just admire the strength and I guess the dignity of Omar and how he kept his mind and his faith throughout all of the things that happened to him, but also to analyze my faith and I'm very first world. Unfortunately, I think we're all Americans here. And, if something goes wrong in your life, you're like, oh, God, why did that happen? And I'm like, you don't even know what could happen to you.
That's a beautiful
You haven't even
answer.
been through it. And I have really thought about just that aspect of it.
So you're about to hear Sierra Bird, accompanied by Brendan Shapiro. Brendan, nice to have you too. Here she is, Sierra Bird.
My son, my son. no matter what they say, I am with you. No matter where you go, I am with you. No matter what they do, with more than you can bear. He found you lost and guided you. You must not despair. Never forget, remember it all. Never forget, remember the fall. You're not done yet. In the distance is a candle or a sun. It doesn't matter what it is, both are the one. Both are the one. Only the one can see the crook in the band. It's a turn to us, but it's straight to him. It's a turn to us, but it's straight to him. It's a turn to us, but it's straight.
Sierra Bird. Oh, my goodness. That was spectacular.
It was absolutely amazing.
Oh, my.
We're talking about the opera Omar, which Jim was lucky enough to see last night, and we're talking to all the people involved, and we're going to be right back after a quick break. You're listening to 89.7 GBH, Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference. Please make a difference by giving now at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
Okay, as I always like to say, we do this every once in a while because if we didn't do this, you'll be listening to commercials, 3 commercials an hour, 6 or 7 minutes long. Jim and I used to do commercial radio, and it was horrible for the listeners to have to listen to those things, and it was horrible for us to have to listen to them too. So because we do this, we are most all of the time commercial-free radio, and we really appreciate it, and I think you do too. We get such lovely text messages from people who contributed to our station. Maureen from Nashua says, so grateful you were on the air, the wonderful educational interviews that we rely on. Marianne from Eureka, I wonder where that is. Is that in Kansas? I don't know. But she says she loves being able to listen to us on a podcast if she missed the live program, so she's pretty far away, I would guess. What we're doing today is offering one of our favorite gifts not quite as favored as the smug mug, on which Jim looks unbelievably smug. You can't even imagine someone could look that smug. But it is the Eton Crank radio, which is an absolutely fantastic gift. It's wonderful to have in an emergency, snowstorm, blizzard, hurricane, whatever it is where your electricity goes off. You crank this thing, and it gives the things that you need in your life, like your cell phone, electricity to run. You can use the flashlight on here because it runs on solar power. So it's just a really handy emergency piece of equipment to have in your home. It's $10 a month. That's for sustaining membership. You can give $120 all at once as well. But we are happy to accept whatever you can give. I know a lot of people with inflation are having a very difficult time. If you can throw us just a few bucks, just once, we'd be very, very grateful to get that too. 888-897-9424 is our number, or gbhnews.org is our website.
So where are you going to hear live performances from Omar except here? You're going to hear a local guy, Fred Van Ness, in a minute. It's unbelievable. Erin in Brookline really sent us a nice note. As a treat to myself, I pulled the trigger on becoming a sustaining member for the first time last night after a rough day before the 7 p.m. deadline. Turning on BPR at 11 this morning and found myself feeling really excited for the impending arrival of the Smug Mug. Thank you both, Margie and Jim. I hate working from home, but listening to you every day has given me some structure, made it more bearable, and I'm grateful to always know what's up in our community. If you share some of the feelings of that wonderful, generous soul, please call 888-897-9424 or go to gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're joined at the desk here by Michael Ellis Ingram, conductor, and Michael Abels, co-composer with Rhiannon Giddens of this brilliant, moving, powerful opera, Omar, about an Islamic scholar ripped from his home and becomes a slave in the United States for the rest of his very long life. We just heard from one of the great performers. We'll hear from a local guy, Fred Van Ness, in just a couple of seconds.
You know, Michael Ellis Ingram, I wondered, you've been 10 years on staff at an opera house in Germany, and one of our producers spoke with you, and you mentioned having a sweet spot for American operas, and I'm wondering, are we different?
Yes, there's something really exciting happening in the American opera scene compared to the German opera scene, which is still very avant-garde. So I jokingly like to say that means paper clips on the violin strings. So it's really difficult, challenging music. But in the American opera scene, many composers are starting to take their cues from Broadway musical theater. And what I mean by that is they're trying to do the working and workshop collaborative process as Broadway shows have always done. So rather than the composer going off to his Tuscan villa and then just presenting the work to the company, he or she works on it together in collaboration with the librettist, with the staging director, the choreographer, the producing opera houses, to keep refining the work and giving it a chance to breathe and get on its feet, and then maybe take it back to the workshop and do some more edits, and then keep putting it up and bringing it back until it's really in a really good place.
So Michael Abels, a couple of quick questions for you. There are all these different genres of music all melded together, I think beautifully here. Was that something were you nervous about, that just sort of mixing them all? And there are tons of them, at least to the consumer, me. That's true, right?
Yeah, you got it completely.
How about it? Was that anxiety provoking or wonderful?
No, it was thrilling. Like personally, all my life, I've been fascinated by different genres of music. Why does this genre sound this way and this one the other way? So I would be kind of like that, the mechanical person in your life who takes things apart to put them back together. That's kind of how I like to write music. I like to write in different genres to see how it works. So in writing Omar, it was a chance to do all of that together, and I think it's because it's all orchestral, that's the glue that holds all the diverse elements together.
Before we have Fred perform, one last question for you, Michael Abels. What do you and Rhiannon Giddens hope that people leave taking away from Omar?
Well, one, that they become aware of his story and about how his story is representative of so many people's story and an important part of who we are as Americans. And the other thing is the incredible transcendent power of faith to overcome anyone's physical circumstances, and his story while it's not a Christian story, it's actually completely indicative of the power of faith to do that.
So let's be joined by yet another wonderful, there he is, Fred Van Ness, and the dreaded local angle. He's a local guy. I love that. He's covering Omar. You'll tell us what covering means. I mean, I know, but maybe people out there. He plays Omadou last night, and you were also terrific. What does cover mean there, Fred?
So a cover, if you know musical theater, it's the understudy, basically.
Yeah.
So I learned the entire role, and I had a great opportunity in this production because Jamez had another performance opportunity when we started rehearsals. So I got to sing as Omar for the first 2 weeks of rehearsal. So I did all of the staging. I got to sing the orchestra zit. So I've actually got to do a lot of Omar in preparation for this.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to sing?
I'm going to sing Home is Home. This is the aria that happens in Act 2. So after he has escaped his first plantation, after having the visitation from his mother in his dream to go to Fayetteville, he has made his way to Fayetteville. And this is he has met the other enslaved people on the plantation. And so he has this moment, almost all of Omar's solo pieces in this, I think of as a prayer almost. I think all of them are prayer-like. And so this is the moment where he starts reflecting on the journey that he's taking, where he is now, and he's just praying to God to help him further along on his journey.
Before you sing, are you the only local person in this group?
For principals, I think so.
That's pretty amazing. How's that feel? That's great, right?
Yeah. I've actually been with Boston Lyric Opera since 2011. So I've been a member of the ensemble for over 10 years now. So this is a really exciting opportunity for me to be able to present this meaningful work to the community.
Well, present away, Fred Van Ness. It's a thrill to have you. Thanks for being here.
Home is home, so near, so far. No more to roam a different star. A different star looks down on me. What does it see? What does it see? What do you see? Almost compassionate, your servant at least. I know this was no accident. I am here by your hand. This is also your land. But can you tell me, oh Lord, why here you delivered me, oh most powerful, why here you sent me a sign, the girl, send me another, as this unfurls.
Tenor Fred C. Van Ness Jr., a member of the current 22-23 class of Jane and Stephen Aiken, emerging artists. We earlier heard from mezzo-soprano Sierra Bird, who appears by kind permission of the Metropolitan Opera Lindemann Young Artist Development Program. We're so grateful to both Michael Abels and Michael Ellis Ingram, who came in today to speak with us about the opera Omar, which is being performed this weekend by the Boston Lyric Opera. Thank you again. That was absolutely amazing and fantastic. Coming up, piano accompaniment I want to mention, very important, courtesy of pianist Brendan Shapiro, another alumnus of the Aiken Emerging Artist Program. Thank you, Brendan, as well.
And by the way, thanks to John Michael Kennedy and the whole staff who are always wonderful to us. We really, really appreciate it.
Coming after this pledge break of the noon news, our media maven, Sue O'Connell. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
This is the GBH Spring Membership Drive. We're taking just a few minutes right now to ask for your contribution. That's how public radio works. Most of the money we spend to run the station comes from listener contributions. We're asking for yours right now at gbhnews.org or call us 888-897-9424. And a good morning to you. I'm Mark Cohen, and I'm joined by Zach Finn.
Our immediate goal is to receive 10 contributions in just under 6 minutes here. The goal is so important because it will help pay for your future GBH listening. We suggest giving what you can, $100 or maybe $15 a month on the Sustainer plan. 10 more people to give and just 6 minutes left. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
We hope you'll take part in the fundraising drive, and with your support today of $10 a month on our Sustainer plan, we'll say thanks with our ever-popular Eton Emergency Radio. You've heard Jim and Marjorie talk about it. It truly is one of our most popular thank you gifts, and it is the Swiss Army knife of radios. You have your AM, your FM, your 7 weather band channels, 3 LED flashlights. It's got a hand crank for the internal turbine. It's also got a solar panel so you can charge the internal battery up that way. So many reasons to have the Eton Emergency Radio. It's a special offer today, $10 a month or a one-time gift of $120. Special also because it goes away at 2 o'clock when we're done pledging for this afternoon. So time's starting to run out, so why not take those couple of minutes right now, show your support, ask for the Eton Emergency Radio at 888-897-9424 or go online securely with your support at gbhnews.org.
At GBH, we don't just deliver the news. We take you through a journey through the news. We explore it, taking the time along the way to meet new people and contemplate new ideas. That's one of the reasons public radio is so special and a good reason to give to GBH now. 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
We'd like to ask you to consider joining our monthly Sustainer program. It's really easy on your wallet, and it's always current. And all we need is just a little contact information and a monthly amount that can be automatically deducted from your bank account or your credit card. It's easy to change that amount too if you need to. You could sign up online or give us a call. Then just sit back, listen to the NPR News, the Jim and Marjorie's, and all the varieties of programs that we offer, and enjoy the fact that you're doing your part each and every month. 888-897-9424 online at gbhnews.org.
A couple of huge thank yous to just send out into the world here. Abigail in Southport, North Carolina. After living in Rhode Island for almost 20 years, or 20 plus years, I should say, we moved to Southport, North Carolina. Listening to Marjorie and Jim almost every day keeps me sane from the crazy politics around here. Also, Osmond and Karina, Maine, I appreciate all the programming at GBH. It's a wonderful service to the public. Osmond, I couldn't have said it better myself. Be like Osmond, be like Abigail. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
Yeah, and with their support, our goal now down to 8 contributions to go in the next 3 minutes. How about giving maybe $10 a month? Pick up the Eton Emergency Radio, maybe a little bit more if that works in your budget. But please help keep this news source that you trust on your radio by giving right now. Again, we got about 3 minutes left to go this hour, looking for 8 more contributions. 888-897-9424 online at gbhnews.org.
And don't forget, today only support GBH at $10 a month, and we're going to thank you with the ever-popular Eton Emergency Radio, normally $180. It has an LED flashlight built right in, and it can even give your cell phone an emergency charge. Sign up as a sustaining member at $10 a month and ask for the Eton Radio. You only have until 2 p.m., and then it will be gone for the rest of the drive. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And you know, GBH depends on listener support for just a little more more than 70% of our operating budget. Your contribution right now more important than ever because it means that we can keep the station on the air and make our quarterly payments to NPR. So please be one of the many listeners who give to GBH. It just takes a couple of minutes of your time at 888-897-9424 or look for the donate button when you find us at gbhnews.org.
Every day you hear the difference on GBH. The in-depth and unbiased news, the thoughtful and civil conversations, the stories told in a way that only GBH tells them. It truly is the news that matters. If you've never given before, now is the time to invest in GBH. It's your support that ensures we can cover the daily issues, chase down the facts, and keep you up to date each day. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Don't waste any more time. Give us a call again, 888-897-9424.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Mass General Brigham Health Plan, a health plan connected to a world-leading healthcare system, committed to providing innovative plans, coverage, and a broad network of doctors. Learn more at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org. And Rockland Trust Bank, dedicated to providing advice and support to the community for over 115 years. More at rocklandtrust.com. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC.
I'm Deputy Investigative Editor Jennifer McKim, and you and I are listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR, what matters to you.
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. Media maven Sue O'Connell weighs in on the Coronation this weekend, the latest Ginny Thomas scandal, and Utah's complete loss of access to Pornhub. Then Adam Balsam, organizer of Big Day Boston Birding Event, and Corrine George, an educator at Mass Audubon. They give us some spring birding tips.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then Attorney General Andrea Campbell joins us at the BPL for Ask the AG. We'll ask her about improving public participation in utility and energy meetings following a report that Massachusetts residents lost more than $500 million on electric bills in the past 6 years. She'll also weigh in on what her office is doing to protect abortion access, and we'll get her view on disgraced Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. We'll open the phone lines to take your calls and texts at 877-301-8970. All that ahead, Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. economy is coming off a stronger than expected month of job growth despite rising interest rates intended to counter stubbornly high inflation. Employers have added 253,000 jobs. NPR's David Gurr reports the Labor Department's latest monthly jobs report also shows the unemployment rate ticked down to 3.4%.
The jobs market has not cooled as much as policymakers had hoped and economists had expected, although there were fewer new jobs in April than the average for the first 3 months of the year. Well, this week, the Federal Reserve, which is trying to slow down the economy to fight high inflation, raised interest rates again by a quarter point. The labor market continues to be very resilient, and today's data may make it more difficult for the Fed to pause at its next meeting in June. The largest jobs gains were in healthcare and in leisure and hospitality, mostly in bars and restaurants, and wages rose slightly. David Gura, NPR News, New York.
The head of a Russian mercenary group at the forefront of the fight to capture the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut claims he's pulling his troops out. Wagner founder Yevgeny Prigozhin angrily accused Russia's defense ministry today of failing to provide more weapons to mercenaries doing Russian President Vladimir Putin's bidding. He says soldiers will leave next week, but Ukraine says it does not believe Wagner will actually withdraw. The coronavirus pandemic is still just that, but today, the head of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, says it's no longer considered a public health emergency.
For more than a year, the pandemic has been on a downward trend, with population immunity increasing from vaccination and infection, mortality decreasing, and the pressure on health systems easing. This trend has allowed most countries to return to life as we knew it before COVID-19.
Police in Serbia have arrested a suspect in a series of shootings that killed 8 people and wounded at least 14. It was the nation's second mass shooting in 2 days. Here's NPR's Rob Schmitz.
In a statement, police said the man was arrested near the central Serbian town of Kragujevac, about 60 miles south of the capital, Belgrade. The gunman fired an automatic weapon from a moving vehicle in 3 villages and was arrested after an all-night search by hundreds of police. The shooting came a day after a 13-year-old boy killed 9 people at a Belgrade school on Wednesday. Serbia's interior minister called this week's second shooting a terrorist act, and it came as a nation was coming to terms with its worst mass shooting in a decade. Students, many wearing black and carrying flowers, filled streets around Belgrade as they paid homage to their murdered peers. The same day, Serbian authorities called to boost gun control throughout the country. Rob Schmitz, NPR News, Berlin.
From Washington, this is NPR News.
Good afternoon from the GBH Radio Newsroom. I'm Henry Santoro. Early tomorrow, thousands of expat Brits here in Massachusetts will be tuning in to the coronation of King Charles in London. That includes 61-year-old Fran Pearson, who grew up in the West Midlands of England. She's getting excited for the once-in-a-lifetime royal event.
I do believe that they've brought a lot to the country and they served the country well for the most part. Prince Charles has got big shoes to fill, and I actually think it's going to be almost impossible for him to fill Queen Elizabeth's shoes. But I think he's going to try. I think he's going to try really hard.
God save the king. Along with watch parties, Boston's British consul is marking the momentous event on Sunday at North Church with a choral matins followed by a garden reception. And if you were in the vicinity of Harvard Yard late Wednesday night, you may have heard some hooting and howling coming from behind those hallowed brick walls. Fear not, though, no one was getting hurt. It was just a bunch of Harvard undergrads celebrating the end of this semester's finals. They were celebrating naked. It's known as Primal Scream, and it's the biannual tradition of running naked or streaking around Harvard Yard on the eve of final exams. And despite the chilly temperatures and steady rain, it didn't stop the students from ditching their clothes in front of Hollis Hall and bearing all as they streaked around the yard. Don't look now, but the Red Sox have won 6 games in a row. They're in Philadelphia tonight for the start of a 3-game series with the Phillies. And just a few blocks from there, the Celtics and 76ers play Game 3 of their playoff series. They're tied at 1 game apiece. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Indeed, committed to helping businesses attract, interview, and hire candidates all in one place. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Eastern Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. And for those live at the library, sorry I didn't make it today. I'm a little bit under the weather.
And the Attorney General, you're feeling better, though, from what I understand.
I am.
A little bit better. Good. I'm glad to hear it. The Attorney General will join us in person at the library 1 to 2 to take our questions and yours. But first, we're joined now on Zoom as well by media maven Sue O'Connell. The media maven is the co-publisher of Bay Windows and the South End News, political analyst for NECN and NBC 10 Boston. Hello, Sue O'Connell.
Good day. Good to see you both.
And to you.
Hello, Sue O'Connell. So let's start with the latest disgrace swirling around. I guess the equally disgraced Justice of the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas. Back about 10 years ago, this guy that's active in the Federalist Society, a big-time conservative activist, Leonard Leo, told GOP pollster Kellyanne Conway, we all remember her, to bill $25,000 to a nonprofit group and give the money to Virginia Ginny Thomas, the justice's wife, but not letting her name be on any of the paperwork. And the problem was, well, there are many problems with that, but the same year, this group, the Judicial Education Project, which is associated with the whole group, filed a brief to the Supreme Court. So what do you think?
I don't know. I don't know how much worse this has to get. And again, this is, I guess, shocking but not surprising, because we have seen evidence and we've seen reports of Ginny Thomas meddling in Clarence Thomas's world when it comes to the January 6th hearings and investigation and the certification of Joe Biden's election win. I don't know how much worse it has to get for Clarence Thomas to get some heat for this. I mean, they basically laundered money here. This is what's being alleged, that they through a number of pass-throughs, Ginny Thomas was able to get cash from people who had business in front of the Supreme Court and through political people that would not be, whether she did or did not pay taxes on it, it was able to be washed in such a way that Clarence Thomas could make an argument that he didn't need to put it on his disclosure forms. Not that apparently he has needed a reason to not put it on his disclosure forms, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that he should have put on his forms that he hasn't. So, you know, the challenge here, which I know you've been talking about, we've been talking about, is that there's no effort, there's no function here, no tool here to punish a Supreme Court justice except for impeachment, right? So it goes from nothing to impeachment.
Well, I'll give you a tool. We discussed this yesterday. Marjorie broached it a week ago when that insane nothing to see here statement came out of Roberts, agreed to by all 9 justices. We spoke to Chuck Todd from Meet the Press yesterday. First of all, he called the Thomases grifters. I mean, it's like a crime family. It's not just grifters. And while it's not a legal procedure, the fact that Sotomayor, who were the other two? Sotomayor, Kagan, and who's the third? Drawing a blank.
The new justice, Ketanji
Brown Jackson. The fact that the 3 of them not only signed on to that statement, essentially being complicit in the notion that there's nothing wrong with the Supreme Court, and that for whatever reason they don't feel it appropriate to stand up and say to the American people, this is the kind of corruption that destroys confidence in the judicial system, is unimaginable to me. I mean this sincerely. If they continue to be silent, they're complicit in the criminal activity. And by the way, you know, we just left out of this thing. We did this yesterday with Chuck. All the financial crimes of Thomas's.
The great nephew, the nephew who got the free
tuition. We did that yesterday.
Yeah.
Those are financial crimes, in my opinion, crimes literally or figuratively. The woman attempted to overturn the election. She's an insurrectionist. I mean, and he voted the one holdout, 8-1, to not turn over documents to the January 6th committee, which include evidence that she was involved in insurrectionist activity. The fact that these 3 liberals are silent is disgraceful. No?
But it is, but there's no tool, right?
There is no tool, that is correct.
Let's say we all agree. We all agree that their behavior is disgraceful. The Thomas, I mean, I've been complaining about how I didn't have better parents, and now I see I didn't have better friends. I should have had better friends who would just give me trips and pay for Ruby's college education and all of that. But at the same time, you know, if Congress gets involved, and that could be a crossover of a constitutional, you know, challenge, because they're in different arms of the government, right? So I don't know what happens here. I mean, you know, it would be great if Chief Justice Roberts could lead. It'd be great if Clarence Thomas would resign. And it would be great if we actually had some rules that we could enforce. They have no tools except impeachment, and we've seen how successful that has been, right?
No, you're totally right. But again, in the meantime, you're right. It's not formal. It's not enforceable. It's nothing. But it would change the dynamic if 1 or 2 or 3 of the principled liberals in this court act principled. And yet,
one more thing, Jim. They're following a 1973 rule book that they believe that they're following the spirit of the law. You know, I can just imagine if anyone went in front of the Supreme Court and said, well, this is the spirit. We're just following the spirit of the law. And I know that other judges on all sorts of levels from all ends of the aisle, all across the country, are upset about this because they have to follow guidelines and the Supreme Court justices do not.
By the way, for people listening to the show, there is a man participating in this conversation who was not invited.
Oh,
we're trying
can you hear it too?
We're trying to get rid of him, whoever he is, as quickly as possible. We don't know who the hell he is.
I just sent you a text, Jim, so I hear talking in my ear.
Well, I've been texting everybody too. We're doing our best as a technical thing, but we'll do as best we can. We're talking to Sue O'Connell, who was invited to participate in the discussion.
She was invited.
Yes, she was.
So, Sue O'Connell, Ed Sheeran, people may know him. He's a British singer-songwriter, written a lot of great music.
Oh, the guy's gone.
The guy's gone.
I think.
He's gone.
Oh, it's coming from Sue. Then forget that. Okay, he's not gone. Go ahead, Marjorie. I'm sorry.
It's coming from you, Sue.
I'm in a newsroom.
Oh, that's okay.
It's your fault,
Sorry,
Sue O'Connell.
I'm in a newsroom.
That's okay.
Everybody down. I'm a media maven. I'm on TV and the radio right now.
That's right. Exactly.
Quiet down,
Tell
everybody.
Shut up. Okay. So this New York jury said that Ed Sheeran, who people may be fans of his, he's written a lot of great songs, including Thinking Out Loud, but he was sued by people representing the late Marvin Gaye, saying that he covered, that would be Sheeran copied, I shouldn't say covered, copied Thinking Out Loud from Marvin Gaye's classic Let's Get It On. Okay, so what we're going to do, Jim, is we're going to play both of these songs.
Side by side?
Side by side.
That is really exciting.
Yep, we get the clip, I think, from Marvin Gaye first, and then we've got the clip from Sheeran. Here we go.
Darling, I will be loving you till we're 70.
Okay, guilty as charged. Next.
So
He's not
actually
guilty.
Not found guilty. He
He's
was
not
found,
guilty.
Not liable, because it wasn't a criminal court, Jim. As you know, there's a difference between guilty and liable. And as you know,
Oops.
I'm
Very
auditing
sorry.
a
Thank
few paralegal courses at Bunker
Are you
Hill, so
really?
I know,
No, she's not.
Ruby's taking them, and I'm helping her. So I'm learning all these things right now. But this was a big deal for a number of reasons. You might remember George Harrison.
Sure.
Yes.
Was found that he had plagiarized He's So Fine by the Shirelles, I believe, that a judge made that decision. And, music experts, much smarter than I am, will tell you that there's only a few chords and a few notes. And Sitting on the Dock of the Bay and Have You Ever Seen the Rain by CCR and a whole host of other songs all have the same musical structure and the same notes. And unless you are actually stealing it and taking it or sampling it, as they started to do, some 30 years ago, you have artistic license to build off it. And what Ed Sheeran did by playing In the Courtroom, which jurors said really helped them to understand, he admitted that he based the song that he played, that he was charged with, off a Van Morrison song. He admitted.
What was the Van Morrison song?
I'm not sure what the Van Morrison song was. I'm going to see if I can find it.
No,
But
it's
he admitted that he had used that to build off it, and that's what artists do. And everybody in the industry is basically saying that this was a bit of a money grab or a nuisance suit. This happens a lot, and usually the artists settle with the person because it's cheaper and it's easier. But this is a big deal, even though, we all love Marvin Gaye and we all love the writers of that song, and that's a great and important song. But at the same time, this really does send a message that if you think that an artist has ripped you off, they really have got to have taken the lyrics or the music.
Yeah, this was
not just build off it.
I just thought it was a total stretch. As soon as you heard the two songs together, I thought, really?
Yep. And that it got this far is pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing.
Can I just say one thing about the Marvin Gaye thing? I'm often hesitant to recommend an album that's 51 years old because people say, really? I've listened to this in the last couple of weeks. If anything holds up from a half century ago, one of the 2 or 3 greatest albums maybe of all time. I mean,
Absolutely.
Sue worked in music radio long before she became whatever it is she is. And whatever you are, you're good at whatever you are. No, you are, and you were a music. What'd you do on music radio?
I was a music director at Kiss 108 in the early 1980s. I worked for Geffen Records, Atlantic Records, A&M Records. I worked at WBOS. So yeah, you're right. The Marvin Gaye album. Plus, it was a major departure for Marvin Gaye.
That is correct.
From a pop R&B singer to a political singer.
Didn't
and
Berry Gordy, head of Motown, not want him to run it because it was too political?
Yep. But but this is a big day for music. People were joking. Ed Sheeran threatened that if he lost, he was going to quit music. So people were kind of mixed about the result.
Yeah. Well, you're not a fan of Ed Sheeran, I take it?
I am, but others were. That's kind of a big
Don't you think you should do something with the hair, though? I mean, the hair is a little troubling to me. When you look at Ed Sheeran, do you have?
Well, we're going to see Ed Sheeran at the Box Center. In about a month, I think, at a very small venue before he heads to Gillette. So we bought tickets. We finally got through to get tickets to something. I told Ruby years ago that Ed Sheeran was the Elton John of her era, and she was kind of shocked until she got to see Elton John as a young performer. And that's kind of who he reminds me of.
We got to take a break.
Okay, we have to take a break. And when we come back, because Jim insists on asking everybody about this, even though he claims he has no interest, the coronation of King Charles. We've been speaking, and we're going to keep speaking, to our media maven, Sue O'Connell. After this quick break, you're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Boston Public Radio. Live, local conversations. Every day brought to you by listener support. Now it's your turn to keep the conversation going with a contribution in any amount. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
You know, today is a perfect day to make the case that if you haven't yet contributed or become a sustaining member of GBH, today is the day to do it. It's a perfect symbol. I mean, we love Sue O'Connell. I mean, do we all agree on that? Yes, we do. The start of the show, we had the leaders of and two performers from this historic production of Omar, this opera, performing live here, especially on a sold-out show. That's a pretty big deal. And at the end of the show, the last hour, the Attorney General is going to spend an hour with us at the library in person, answering questions from callers, texters, people here. I think that's a pretty big deal. And if you do too, it's time to call 888-897-9424, sorry about that, or go to gbhnews.org. And today, Marjorie, in addition to making a contribution and feeling good about yourself and helping us, if you do $10 a month, what would you get exactly?
The Eton Crank Radio.
Wow.
You have one right there. Would you crank it, please,
I will
Jim?
crank it while you're speaking. Yes,
Okay.
I will. Take it away. Do you hear it or not?
There it goes.
Yeah, I'm cranking.
There it goes. The
Thank you.
mighty crank of
That's
the
it.
Eton Crank Radio.
I am the mighty crank of
If you
the
don't
Eton
have any
Crank Radio.
electricity, well, you're the mighty crank every day,
Thank
as we
you.
know.
Appreciate
But if you don't have the Eton Crank Radio in an emergency when the lights go out or you have a hurricane or a bad weather situation, you know, you could be kind of hot water.
Screwed.
This will,
Yep.
or cold water, I suppose, depending on what the emergency
Thank
is.
you.
But this thing will help your cell phone, will recharge your cell phone, provide you with a light. They're not dependent on electricity. They're dependent on that cranking that Jim just demonstrated.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need any electricity, and you can also get AM/FM radio without electricity.
It's got solar power too, you know. If you're not in a cranking mood, did you
Yeah.
say that? You can charge it through the sun?
Yes, and the flashlight is an LED flashlight as well, so
Fabulous.
it's kind of a really neat thing to have for emergencies. I also want to say, listen to this one. I love that we get texts from people who contribute, and we're very
what'd they
grateful
say?
to them. Listen to this from Helena and Bellrica. She's supporting the oldest form of wireless communication, the radio. How about that? I mean, radio has really survived a lot of other competitors, has it not, Jim?
It's doing pretty well, I think.
Thank God. And Alan from Middleborough says he looks forward to hearing GBH and Jim and me every day, every weekday on the radio. Thank you very much to Alan. So if you haven't contributed yet, as Jim said, and you want to contribute, today's a great day to contribute, because for $10 a month, you can get that Eton Crank Radio. But we're not proud here. We'll take anything you can give, and we appreciate your listening to us, and we appreciate your contributing to us, because otherwise you'll be listening to about 18 minutes of commercials every hour, and that would be horrible. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. The Attorney General will be with us in 40 minutes, but right now we're continuing our conversation with media maven Sue O'Connell.
Okay, Sue O'Connell, I really am in a hurry to get to the big story of the week, which, of course, is the tragic situation for pornography lovers out in Utah.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, because Jim wants to say all the time that he's above watching these coronations and how
Thank you.
ridiculous it is that there's still a king of England, before that a queen of England. Where are you on the coronation dust-up?
When is that happening?
Don't
I'm sorry.
even try.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So, you know, it's I kind of want to quote Tina Brown, who was in the New Yorker radio hour this past
Love her.
segment.
Love her.
And she said it's time to abolish the monarchy, to free the royals.
Wow.
Free the
Because
royals.
the royals are they're like indentured servants. They're just stuck there. And this painful process that King Charles has to go through after all of this waiting. And it's just, you know, it's just a no-win situation for him. He has been waiting his whole life to do this. His not going to be his mom, right? The beloved
No,
mom.
he's not.
He's got a warring family underneath him that he doesn't really seem to be able to control. Everybody hates the monarchy right now, and they don't have any money in Great Britain. And now they are probably at their weakest, Great Britain, that they have been in his entire lifetime and his mother's lifetime. So why don't we just hope that he can save the planet? Let's just make a move to make sure that, you know, we give him the support to be the environmental king.
But yeah, wait, can I
and
just
take
say
it from
something
there.
about that? He's backing away from his public advocacy on environmentalism when he went from Prince of whatever The king, which is, I mean, let him be a king, environmental king. In any case, okay, enough of that. I am going to change our order here because we haven't done a quiz in weeks. Marjorie hates quizzes.
We're moving on to Utah.
No, but in a minute.
I just said that.
I know you are, but we're going to get to it. I want to do a quiz quickly. Can we just do this? It makes me happy because I like quizzes. Here's the quiz. Sue, we'll start with you. This is a fun quiz, actually.
Okay.
This weekend is the 50th anniversary of something really, really important. Sue O'Connell, you go first. What would that be? 50th anniversary of what?
This is the time I found out I was repeating 6th grade when I was 11.
Well, that is a major moment. Is that all you can bring to the table?
Let's see, Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs.
Was that 50 years ago?
That was 50 years ago. Tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. That was #1 at this time in 1973. I don't know. What am I
good.
missing?
Well, those all are wrong. Now, Marjorie, I'm sure you're going to say, why are we wasting time on this? But do you have a guess or not?
Maybe Big Brother Bob Emery went off the air on Channel 4 in Boston. A Rex Trailer retired. I don't know.
That would be wrong. It is the 50th anniversary of one of the most important moments we have ever celebrated on this show, which is this.
He is moving like a tremendous machine.
How can you not
God.
know?
It's
the 50th anniversary of Secretary winning the Belmont.
50th anniversary
yes, it
of
is
Secretary.
Tomorrow.
1973?
Oh, actually, it's 50th anniversary of winning the Kentucky Derby, I guess, which is tomorrow.
Wait a minute.
Which is
he
the
won
first
in
of the triple.
73.
What? Well, that's 50
Wasn't
years,
it?
Marjorie.
No, is it 50 years?
Oh my God.
Yes,
He is moving like a tremendous
Exactly.
machine.
That was the point I was trying to
Wow.
make. He was moving like a tremendous machine.
He was moving like a tremendous machine. Yeah, I know. The Kentucky Derby is tomorrow. That's right. Are you a horse racing fan? I don't really
Who are you
watch it
talking
that
to?
much anymore. Sue O'Connell.
So, are you a horse racing fan?
Well, my mom worked for a rodeo, remember?
That's
she
and,
did, yes.
She traveled through the Southwest and through the South and was huge. I grew up surrounded by pencil drawings of some of the great Man of War and some of the other great thoroughbreds. And I grew up right next to Suffolk Downs. So I personally am not, but I was kind of steeped in horse racing culture as a kid.
Marjorie,
look at the media maven's legacy.
What is it?
Grandma's
Amazing.
a bookie. Mom's in the rodeo.
Yeah.
And she grows up hard in the shadow of a tough place, Suffolk
And
Downs.
here I am on
beautiful.
public radio.
Here you
Isn't
are
that
on public
amazing?
radio.
Before we leave this, one more quiz for you, Marjorie.
Oh my God! Look at the picture of
What is it?
Secretariat
Where is it?
running.
I don't even see it.
It's up on our screen.
Whatever.
Zoe
Okay.
Matthews.
I don't know where it is.
Zoe Matthews is at the Kentucky
Well, that's what I
Derby.
was just about to tell you. That's unbelievable.
Oh,
So much
my
for that.
God.
I know. Zoe Matthews works with us. She's at the Kentucky Derby with Tom Brady or somebody. We don't know. Okay. You want to get to pornography, Marjorie? Take it away.
I do. Well, first of all, I didn't know that Mormons were allowed to watch pornography, so I'm shocked to see that there's
That's a
so
good
much
point,
concern in
actually.
Utah, where so many people are Mormons, about Pornhub blocking access to its site out there because Utah is demanding a age verification on their site.
Yeah, I don't know if they're not allowed to. I know that they traditionally end up in the top 10 of states per capita that view porn.
That is not true. Is that? Are you making that up?
No. It's,
Really?
Depending on how you slice it, it's obviously not a big population, but it does come down very often to
Wow.
the per capita, and they're usually in the top 20 at least. And so that's a point. And remember, the Marriott was owned by Mormons, and they had a big kerfluffle because you could actually order porn in the room.
in your room
Oh,
on the
my
TV.
God.
That was
Right.
the problem.
Oh,
But
my
they've
goodness.
passed this rule. It's very easy for kids to access porn on the computer. There's these age questions that you're asked, but you can very easily get by them. So they've passed a law in Utah, or passing a law that says you have to show your license in order to access to prove you're 18. Now people are pushing back on that because the porn industry doesn't want to do that. It's another
No.
layer. They're saying it will push people to sites that aren't safe, that don't have any requirements, and that's not a good deal. But at the same time, I think we could all agree there should be, make it a little bit more difficult for kids under 18 to access porn. I'm not sure that this is the answer, though. But Pornhub, which has its own challenge of issues, is just saying no porn for you, in the words of the great soup Nazi from Seinfeld, and saying that they're willing to walk away from supplying our friends in Utah with any of their porn. So we'll see what happens. I don't know that this is the answer, but I do share the concerns that it is very easy to get porn on the computer for kids.
Where is our former governor, now a senator from Utah, on
Good
the
question.
porn issue?
I
Do we
don't know.
Well,
No, I
I
don't
would
know.
guess as a man who wouldn't say the word hell, but he would say HE double hockey sticks.
That is true.
That maybe
That is true.
he's not keen on Pornhub. I could be wrong. Everyone, you never know what people do behind closed doors.
Well, some
Yep.
say it's a First Amendment issue, even though a good friend of ours says it is not a First Amendment issue and it's
Right.
not protected, as we all know. So, Sue,
Well,
go ahead, Marjorie.
Talking about regulating what everybody wants to do with their lives, which is what they're doing out in Utah, the Oklahoma governor has come down on a person that I think we can all agree is really bringing the culture down. That, of course, would be Clifford the Big Red Dog here on PBS. Here's Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stint, who vetoed the Oklahoma Educational Television Authority bill because of shows with LGBTQ content. Here's what Stint had to say.
I don't think Oklahomans want to use their tax dollars to indoctrinate kids, and some of the stuff that they're showing, it just overly sexualizes our kids. There's Parents Defend Child Transition on PBS that's being played. There's elevating LGBTQIA2S plus voices. Again, if you want to watch that, that's fine. But why am I using taxpayer dollars to prop that up?
Why aren't we playing the rest of his soundbite? What happened to that?
I don't know.
The rest of his soundbite, he says, well, I'm against this and also against Work It Out Wombats. He is in favor of Pornhub. He did go on to say that
Right.
in Oklahoma.
So how are Clifford the Big Red Dog and, as Jim just mentioned, Wombats from Work It Out Wombats, which is a great show, ruining the morality of our children?
Because they're showing toddlers in tiaras prancing around. And no, they're not doing that. That would actually be sexualizing children. This is actually showing that a couple of the characters, many of whom are not real characters, they're animated animals, may have a same-sex parent couple that really aren't active in the storyline at all. They just show up. So actually representing the life that most children are exposed to in a age-appropriate and non-harmful or non-advocacy way is what he's worried about. Like we had very long conversations, Jim, some 15, 20 years ago about Postcards from Buster, who was a spin-off from the Arthur.
We did.
Buster went to Vermont to see the sap draining of the trees, and he stayed with a kid the little vignette in it was with two moms. They did nothing that would even indicate that they were together or that they were the kids' moms, but everybody's head caught on fire because it displayed gay people parenting in an age-appropriate way.
Let me ask you a question, Media Maven Sue O'Connell. You're a gay woman. You're a lesbian.
Last time I checked.
Do you
Is that a
think
question?
do you think what turned the tide for you was seeing, Clifford the Red Dog with a character that had a gay parent? I mean, is that what really opened your eyes and said, that's where I'm going?
As I like to point out to people, about 99.9% of LGBTQ adults were raised by straight parents. So we're not actually the problem. Our kids are actually overwhelmingly turning out to be straight. So I guess we're doing a better job making America straight than straight parents are. And we had nobody to see. We had nobody in media. I mean, the only gay person I ever saw on television was Rita Mae Brown on the Merv Griffin talk show when I was in second or third grade. Brown. And that the author, Rita Mae Brown.
Yeah.
So the idea that just presenting life as it is without comment. Here's parents. Oh, here's an interracial couple. Here's a couple of a different religion. It does not in any way influence kids except to say there's a big world out there. And it's just, it's ridiculous. There are a lot of ways that we can talk about how we should protect young children from being sexualized. I would argue that any grim fairy tale pretty much is more sexualized and more gender normative and forcing the idea than almost any LGBTQ character in any kids program. But obviously, let gay people raise the children and they'll turn out straight. That would be my message.
Can you believe we used to read Hansel and Gretel to our children? Our parents read Hansel and Gretel, that your parents are going to abandon you in the forest to be eaten by an evil witch.
How about Bambi? Isn't Bambi's mother killed in the first? Yeah.
That's
exactly.
right. Everybody stands up and is screaming in the theater.
No, I think we all had that moment where we sat down with our kids and said, hey, let's look at this classic like Snow White. You're going to love it. And I watched Snow White with Ruby when she was like 4 at home, and she was hiding behind the couch by the end of it. It was so terrifying.
So can I ask you a question before you go? If we send you free let's say, I don't know, let me say 3 pair of WGBH socks, would you stuff 1 pair in the mouth of the guy who's talking in the background there out at NEC
I will
and NBC
indeed.
10?
I will. I
Okay,
will.
fine,
I
thank
will.
you.
No, it's terrible. We were all blaming people at the library. And turns out, Sue, it was you over there
It's
at
a
NECN.
newsroom.
And
we
her
actually have
friends.
people in the newsroom.
You know
we
what?
actually still have employees.
More power to you.
They come to
That's
work.
wonderful.
Sue O'Connell, it's great to see you
Sorry.
as always.
Okay, thanks.
That's
Bye-bye.
fine, Sue. Great to see you.
We've been speaking with our media maven, Sue O'Connell. Sue O'Connell is the co-publisher of Bay Windows and the South End News and a political analyst for NECN and NBC 10 Boston. Coming up next, I can't wait to talk to these two. Spring is in bloom and birds are in your backyard. Our guests know an awful lot about the world of birding, and they're going to share some of that knowledge, including some upcoming events involving birding. You are listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
If you listen to Boston Public Radio 3 hours a day, that's 15 hours a week, 60 hours a month, and 720 hours a year. Maybe it's time you pitched in. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
Okay, this is obviously one of our infrequent pledge drives, and we have pledge drives because we are listener supported. More than 70% of our money comes from listener support, most of it through small gifts, $10, $15 a month, and we get grants as well from these foundations and stuff like that. But very little of it comes from the government. Despite what people think. So we have these pledge drives and an opportunity for those of you who listen to us, listen to this station. We're on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have our colleagues on in the morning, Paris and Jeremy. We have our colleagues, Arun, on in the afternoon. We have also some great evening shows. We have great shows all weekend long. We have a great show on the media, which I love to. I religiously watch that every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. We have a lot of great show. So anyway, it's not just us. It's all our colleagues as well, and that's who you're supporting. So we have a great present today to try to entice you to give. It's the Eton Crank Radio. Maybe Jim can tell you a little bit more about it, but if you want to call or give online, the number is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
So the Eton Emergency Crank Radio gets AM, FM, and the National Weather Service. It has multiple power sources. That's why it's an emergency thing. Hand crank and solar, so you don't need batteries or anything like that. It's also got an LED flashlight built in. Even give your cell phone an emergency charge, which to me is maybe the most important part. Sort of called, what's it called again? The Swiss Army knife
Swiss
of
Army
radios.
knife, that's right.
For $10 a month or $120 all at once, you not only get to support something you hopefully care a lot about, namely the station, you get that gift. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Mardragan live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBHnews and facebook.com/GBHnews. In about 25 minutes, Andrea Campbell, the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, will join us in person here to take our questions and yours. But first, flowers, pollen. Marjorie's going to mock this expression. The whack of the bat at Fenway, all markers of spring in New England. But for birders, spring's an exciting time when birds make their way back north, gracing the Northeast with their fabulous morning songs. And despite what you might think, there is no need to leave the city for bird spotting. That's the message birder Adam Balsam wants to spread. Balsam organized a downtown birding competition at tomorrow. It's called Big Day Boston. Later this month, the Mass Audubon Society will host a birdathon too. Joining us now to help us navigate the world of birding is Adam Balsam, organizer of Big Day Boston. You just said that, Jim. And Corinne George, I just said this too, Mass Audubon teacher and educator, I didn't say this, at the Boston Nature Center in Mattapan. Adam and Corinne, it's great to have you both. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. So, Corinne, let's start with you. How'd you get into birding?
Oh, man. Well, I was a kid on Cape Cod. That's where I grew up. And just being outside with my family, we didn't have loads of money, so walking is free. And so from there, I just realized that birds were just super exciting and fantastic. So I started around 8, I guess, is my first record of birds. I have my old journal and actually put that all into online records during the pandemic. So that helped me during the pandemic as well.
Speaking of the Cape, before we leave you, did you know Vern Lux? Did you know who he was?
I don't think so.
Vern was a birder who I think was on our sister station, CAI on the Cape. He was one of our first guests when Marjorie and I started here 10 years ago. I had no interest in the topic, and he, like I assume you're going to do, totally mesmerized us in terms of the thing, sent us to Mount Auburn Cemetery, and he was a great and wonderful mentor. How'd you get into it, Adam? What's your deal?
Well, when I was a kid, my parents had feeders, and we were into it. But I think, one of the things that sparked it was noticing the different seagulls at the beach and how different they looked. And I got curious as to why they looked so different. Yeah, there's the big, kind of brownish ones, and then the more pristine white ones. And it turns out the brown ones are the young ones, and that's the big difference. That was kind of one of my sparks.
And when I said a minute ago, Adam, that the conventional wisdom for lay people like me, who are not big-time birders, you know who also helps? Christian Cooper, and that horrible thing in Central Park, I think turned on a lot of people to birding, frankly, in a good way, despite the pain he suffered. Most of us think, Adam, that you can't do it in the city. Disabuse us of that notion.
Right, yeah. Well, last year around this time, I was walking to work downtown from the north end, and I came across a palm warbler, which is kind of unusual for downtown. And right after that, I saw an eastern towhee. And so I kind of challenged myself to see how many birds I could count in a week. And it turned out I found 27 birds without leaving downtown in a week. Wow. 27 different species. And that's without, some common ones. So, I mean, it goes up from there. So you absolutely can see a lot of birds downtown.
Can we play, we have sound from, that is apparently a little less common in the city. This eastern towhee, here's the eastern towhee doing its thing.
Drink some tea.
Would you know that it was, if I hadn't told you in advance, would you have known that it was?
I would. Drink some tea is what people think that sounds
incredible.
Like. Yeah.
So, but I know that because I read the stuff here talking about being able to see a lot of birds and hear a lot of birds in the city, but I've noticed just around where I live right near the T off of Beacon Street in Brookline, there's far fewer birds singing in my neighborhood. Because I used to hear so many, and now I don't hear so many. So what's that about?
Corinne?
Oh, me. Yeah, there's actually a big study that was released recently, and we have lost, since 1970, we've lost, I think it's 3 billion, I forget the number.
3 billion?
It's in the billions, sorry if I'm misquoting it, birds. And so there is it's a big decline. So the more we can spread the word about birds and birding, even right in the city, it's important because of the decline that we've seen throughout the whole country.
And what's the decline about?
Well, many things: climate change. A lot of it's habitat loss, and some is pesticides. And then grassland birds are getting the big three, and so they've declined much more severely. So, say you're out somewhere with bigger grasslands, like in the middle of the country, those birds like bobolink and meadowlark, they're seeing it even more so than, say, other birds you might think of like robins and things like that.
Adam Paulson, when Corinne just mentioned climate change, not having studied the issue vis-a-vis birds, it's pretty obvious when you have early spring, like we've had for years now. I assume birds get fooled, and correct me if I'm wrong, into migrating when they shouldn't be. They get here, and then spring returns to what it's supposed to be for a day or two. It's freezing or cold, and that's like a killer for birds, is it not?
Absolutely, yeah. I've read stories of people seeing orioles in Canada that get lost and their feet freezing to fences up there and stuff. It is, yeah.
So climate change is a big issue. So tell us a little bit about your competition, Big Day, which is tomorrow, which unfortunately is full, correct?
There's still registration available.
There is.
BigDayBoston.com.
Great.
Yeah. I don't know how many more we can handle, but it's
BigDayBoston.com.
That's correct.
What is it?
So Big Day Boston is an urban birding competition where people will compete to see the most number of species that they can without leaving the downtown neighborhoods of Charlestown, the North End, Beacon Hill, Leather District, Chinatown, and a few others. And the idea is that one way to bird is to appreciate the birds that are right there in your backyard. And for me, the backyard is downtown Boston. Rather than people driving to Maine to see a Steller sea eagle when they haven't seen a yellow-bellied sapsucker in their own backyard. So the idea here is just to kind of quantify how many unique species we can see right in our own backyards.
And you handed me this card in which you put your name. You had Jim and Marjorie, where I don't know if we'll be there tomorrow, but essentially a bunch of birds, it looks like maybe 45 or 50 here.
There's almost 100 birds on the list.
Oh, I didn't know. There is, with a check thing. So for this competition, do you trust people that they're not lying?
It's the honor system.
So they don't have to take a photograph?
They don't have to take a photograph.
Bird
It's the honor
watchers
system.
don't lie, Jim. That's not something that they do. Let's play some. Can we play a little bit more bird songs?
Oh, sure, we can. We'll put up a picture of one of them,
too.
too.
Song sparrow. Let's get the picture of the song sparrow, because I think that's a very common bird that a lot of us would recognize, and a lot of us recognize the sound of the song sparrow, too. Here it is.
Would you two know that, too, if we
Isn't
just
that
played
great?
that?
Song sparrows have a lot of
Probably.
different
They do?
songs.
Yeah, they vary. That one actually sounds a little odd, right?
Yeah, that sounded off to me.
They have different dialects.
Really?
Birds have different dialects throughout the country, I swear. And
No,
so
they don't.
They do, just like people. I heard
Okay.
them in California. I'm like, what is this? And it was a song sparrow. What? So, yeah.
No, wait a
Why do
second. So a song sparrow in downtown Boston and one in San Francisco is going to sound
It
different?
may sound different. And even in Maine, I've heard, that, Mainers have the accent, and the Maine birds, I've heard different accents.
Adam,
It's kind of crazy.
why do birds sing?
Your guess is as good as mine.
We just don't know.
Lots of reasons, right?
What are they? How, you want to jump in, Corinne? Do you have a thought?
Well, I can't get in their head, but a lot of it is. It sounds really pretty to us, but it's very it's them saying, "I'm stressed out." A lot of it.
Really?
It's like, yep. It's like, "Hi, ladies. Here I am." But also, it could be, "Stay away, fellas. This is my territory." And then they also, but besides the actual song we heard, they have a lot of different calls, alarm calls, calling to the young ones. So each bird has multiple calls, and that makes it amazing, but also challenging when you're leading bird walk sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, I have no idea what that is.
Now, Adam, I read where the little sparrow, we just heard that little song, it can be a killer, that they can kill other birds. How do they do that?
Song sparrows?
Song sparrow?
I've never heard that before.
I think a house sparrow? Are you thinking of the house sparrow?
I don't know.
House sparrows are invasive.
I know the answer. It's only the sparrow with the California accent that kills.
Okay.
It's the eastern one is perfectly friendly and safe
It
to
is.
its
It's the house
sisters
sparrow.
and brothers.
It's the house sparrow. It's not the song sparrow. How does the house sparrow kill other birds?
Well, I think largely from taking nesting sites.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
they're invasive, along with like starlings, and there's several invasive species. The most common birds that you see in downtown Boston are probably invasive, house sparrows and
But
starlings.
they can't actually kill the babies
Oh.
and knock eggs out of nests, things like
Oh.
that. So unfortunately, they directly sometimes do some
Gosh,
some
they're
homicides.
vicious.
Yeah,
Vicious little
yeah.
things.
They can be pretty vicious. Yeah.
We got to
It
take a
sounds
break.
so
We're going to find
pretty.
out what the Audubon Society is doing in a minute, what you're doing also in Boston, but we do have to take a break, Marjorie.
Okay, we do have to take a break. We are talking about birds, speaking with Adam Balsam and Corinne George. The conversation continues after this quick pledge break. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, and we are broadcasting from the Boston Public Library.
Live, local, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, Boston Public Radio. It's here on GBH Radio because of your support. Now's your chance to keep the conversation going. Give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Okay, William from Middletown, he has donated to GBH. He says he can't wait to get his smug mug. That was the prize for yesterday. That's the mug on which Jim looks extremely smug. Lisa from Merrimack
That's the
says,
name.
thank you. That's right. Thank you, Boston Public Radio. Always entertaining and informative. Linda from Chelmsford says she loves listening to the program every single day. We thank very much the people for contributing and taking the time to say why they contributed and why they like the show. And I hope more of you who haven't contributed yet would consider contributing today, because we have a really neat gift, $10 a month, the Eton Crank Radio, which is a great emergency radio, AM/FM radio, National Weather Service, a hand crank to get it powered up. It has solar power, no need for batteries. Will charge your phone and will be a flashlight for you. It's a great little gift. But as Jim always says, I'll steal his line today.
What is it?
We hope you give because you appreciate what you hear
Oh, I do
and you
say
want
that.
to give some support to it. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Well, I'm going to do the reverse now. Since you did my line, I'll do yours about the whatever it's called, the
Commercials.
Eton Crank Radio. No. This
Oh,
thing
okay.
is the best part of this to me is not the radio, even though that's great, especially in an emergency National Weather Service. How many times you've been in an emergency or a near emergency and your cell phone's dead and you can't
A lot.
charge it? You can charge it with this thing by just cranking the damn Eton thing and then plug it in your phone, and everything is fine. So for whatever reason, whether it's the crank radio, it's because you like what our colleagues do on the station, you're guilt-ridden, you haven't given, give what you can. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're live from the library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. And what's the other thing? Facebook.com/GBH News. We'll be joined in about 15 minutes by the Attorney General, but first we're speaking to Adam Bolsom, the organizer of the Big Day Birding event tomorrow. What's it again? BigDay.org?
BigDayBoston.com.
BigDayBoston.com, my apologies. And Corinne George, naturalist and educator with Mass Audubon's Boston Nature Center. Since Marjorie likes seeing the photographs, one of the birds that is on your list of 100 that you might see tomorrow is the yellow warbler. Let's hear what the yellow warbler has to say and maybe a little picture. Here it is. Sounds like a warbler.
Yeah.
So can you tell us what the Audubon thing that
In Mattapan.
In Mattapan. Well, the Audubon event, though, is a little bit later in May, right? A couple of weeks,
Right.
a week from now or something. What's going on with you guys?
Right, so we're actually a week after Adam's event. So it's a 24-hour event. It's May 12th at 6 p.m. through May 13th at 6 p.m. And it's the 40th anniversary, so that's kind of a big deal. And it's statewide, so it's a fun event. It doesn't matter on your expertise level. And all the money goes towards Mass Audubon programs, having sliding scale for camps, all of our and, of course, buying properties and things like that. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. You can sign up at massaudubon.org/birdathon. And on top of that, of course, we always have our regular bird walks at Boston Nature Center in Mattapan and at other locations. And we also
elaborate on that, Kareem. What is that? What will people find at the Nature Center in Mattapan if they go visit?
Sure, yeah. We have 67 acres. It's a fantastic,
Wow.
it's a jewel right there. So people come and they've never heard of you before and they're surprised. And on my personal list there, I'm over 100 species of birds. And so it's just fantastic. We also we don't have a lot of water there. We do have a small brook, but we do get water birds flying over. So you can even get some ocean birds sometimes flying over on top of the forest and the grassland birds. We have a nature preschool there. We have a little nature playground called the Nature Nook. Many adult family programs, children's programs, things like that. So,
Adam Bolsom, when someone is skeptical, like I used to be, about the whole birding deal, what do you say? What's your one-line or your elevator pitch? I'm serious, to somebody who says, it's not for me, I'm not that interested in them, I can see a picture in a book, whatever. What do you say about what it'll do for them?
Yeah, well, I never had to try to convince somebody to be a birdist. That's an interesting question. They're all around us, and I suppose if it doesn't interest you that these bizarre species are flying around us, and there's hundreds of different ones, and they're doing crazy things.
There's nothing I can say.
There's nothing I can say.
Well,
yeah.
can I tell you what it does for me? In addition to the beauty of the thing, it's really calming. I'm never relaxed, and it is really a calming kind of thing. You're nodding in agreement.
Very
yes?
much so, yeah. And many people it saved them during the pandemic. They joined during the pandemic as a birder, and they stuck with it. And for me personally, my mental health, it was a lifesaver. It really did.
Can we hear the oyster catcher, please, Jim?
Well, I'm not doing it, but our colleagues are, sure.
Yeah, this bird apparently is not so common, but you might see this bird along the shoreline this time of year. It's called the American, and it's the shoreline because it's an oyster catcher.
I've never heard an oyster catcher sounding like that, but
it's a beautiful bird.
Okay, so we
noise.
may have screwed this whole thing up. Then I think is what you're telling us.
No, they all make multiple noises.
Correct.
They make multiple noises. Yeah.
When you're young, we haven't. Wait a second. When we ask, speaking of the oyster catcher, maybe even the wrong one. I assume when you do what you both do and love birding like you do and birds like you do, I assume your friends say, "Can you do a bird for us?" So let's get down to it, Corinne.
They sure do.
What's your best?
No, I cannot.
No, that is not true. Is that really true?
It is true. I'm terrible at it. I've met
can't
people
do anything?
No, I mean, I make things up. Like, I can pretend.
Well, pretend. Go ahead.
Oh, my gosh. Well, the yellow warbler we heard.
Perfect. Let's hear it.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. I'm so sweet.
That is pathetic. Now, Adam,
I told you. I warned you.
Well, you're honest. Adam, can you do any better?
I had a second to think about it. A chickadee, which says basically its name, chickadee-dee-dee-dee, chickadee-dee-dee-dee.
It's a little better.
Yeah.
Not very good.
Jim,
I warned you.
Can't you do a pigeon, Jim? Didn't you tell me you could do a pigeon?
I used to do a pigeon. I used to clean the pigeon coops at Old Doc Flynn's when I was a kid. It was in Germantown, Philadelphia. It was one of my first jobs, actually. And that's another thing. Since pigeons, I can't get into. I mean, Tell me, can you convince me on that?
Well, one of the fun things about pigeons is how much variety there is, and from the breeders that you're talking about, and so my kids enjoy naming the pigeons that they see in the Prado. One has a white wing, one has a black wing. There's so much variety in pigeons.
You know what's also great about pigeons, which if you don't like them, like I don't, you often miss. You're sitting on a park bench and you see a pigeon walking by. I don't know what it's called, but the back of their neck is often these beautiful purple, you think it's like a gray mass?
Iridescent.
These iridescent, beautiful colors kind of things.
Well, if you want to think of military pride or history or something like that, that's the only bird to ever win a medal. I believe it's a Purple Heart.
Is that really true?
From World War I, delivering messages across enemy lines.
Carrier that's pretty great,
I could have the award incorrect.
Well, okay.
It's a military award of some kind.
That's great.
So at the beginning, we were talking about birds disappearing by the billions, and Corinne, you mentioned pesticides. For people that are listening and are concerned about birds surviving, is there anything that we should be doing?
Yeah, there's actually the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. They have a list of, I believe it's 7 things you can do for birds. Some of these are going to be controversial, so don't yell at me. But one of a big one is leave your cats indoors. They do kill billions. I love cats. I'm a big fan. But they do kill billions of birds every year. Billions with a B.
Really?
The studies have shown, they were kind of like suspicious of it, then they did studies of it, and and then of course, Roundup, there's been an environmental, every agency, everyone's against it, and we're trying to get that outlawed in the U.S. For years.
It should be outlawed. Look at all the workers on lawns that have gotten sick from it.
Right. So other countries have outlawed it, so that's a deep issue with the EPA and all that. But so there's a lot of things. Shade-grown coffee. I don't drink coffee, but many people do. And so if you could find shade-grown coffee online, that supports many migrating birds, like yellow warblers. A lot of birds are only here for part of the year, and then they're in Central and South America for the rest of the year. So that's their winter home. And the regular sun coffee plantations have almost no birds in them. It's like a desert. But the shade-grown coffee supports a variety of birds. So there's many things you can do.
So let's get to the upbeat thing before you guys go. BigDayBoston.com, did I get it right
That's
that
correct.
time? Okay,
Yep.
Tomorrow. So let's assume someone like me, who's all of a sudden into birds a few years ago, I can't identify most of those. So do you get the card, bring a little book with you?
I would
kind of
suggest
thing,
bringing a field
and
guide.
you're checking it kind of deal? And,
Absolutely.
And then
Yep.
you check the thing and don't lie is the basic.
That's
is that
right. That's right.
So it's BigDayBoston.com. There's still a few spaces.
That's right.
What time are people reporting where tomorrow?
So check-in starts at 9 a.m. tomorrow.
9 a.m.
Birding is from 10 to 4. Awards at 4:30.
What do you get if you win?
You'll have to show up to find out.
Exactly. And tell us about your event the next week at Mass Audubon.
Sure, yep, you can sign up online. It's going to be the Birdathon. It's statewide. You can sign up. You can join the Boston Nature Center team, Metro West team. You can sign up at massaudubon.org/Birdathon. And you can, as long as another person is with you to verify what you saw or heard, that's all you need. So you could be a total beginner, go on one of our walks. We have 2 walks at Boston Nature Center that are totally free, the evening of the 12th and the morning of the 13th. So if you're brand new and you're right in the Boston area, that'd be great to come and join us.
But if 2 people conspire to lie together, there's nothing you can do, right? You just have to just mark it up to
We use the honor system a lot in birding. Yeah, we use the honor system.
Congratulations. You're both doing great stuff. And I have to say, as a rank amateur, it is great. And sign up, participate, do it yourself. Before you go, I realize I should. What's a great location in the city for each of you if people don't want to go to the burbs? Where do they go?
Castle Island.
That's great.
Oh, yeah.
How about you, Corinne? What would you suggest?
Well, it's a little further, but my favorite is Squantum Point Park in Quincy. That's where I've seen almost 150 species just there. It's very small, and you see a lot.
Great. Thank you both.
Thank you
that was
so
great.
much
We
for
really
coming
appreciate
in.
it. Both of you. Thanks so much for your time.
We've been speaking with Adam Balsam, the organizer of the Big Day birding event taking place in downtown Boston Saturday, and Corinne George, a naturalist and educator at Mass Audubon's Boston Nature Center. You can find out about Adam's event at BigDayBoston.com. That's BigDayBoston.com. Coming up after this pledge break, the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Andrea Campbell. She's going to take our questions in yours at 877-301-8970. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
I need the clip sheet. I don't know what I did with it. If you don't mind putting it again. And how close is it? Okay, good. Okay. It's fine. Okay, fine. Thank you.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference. Please make a difference by giving now at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
You know, I think Marjorie and I have told you that long before we were lucky enough to work here at GBH, we were huge fans of public radio, public television, and I sort of knew right away what I got, and I really liked giving, not only because I thought it was the right thing to do and assuaged the little bit of guilt I felt, but also because you feel like you're belonging to something that really matters in your life. And if you listen to this station as much as we do, which is virtually all week long, you know you get a lot. I mean, for example, in about 2 minutes, you're going to get an hour where if you have a question, a comment, an issue you'd like to address directly, not through intermediaries, not through an email, with the Attorney General, you can do that right now. Andrea Campbell is going to be with us for an hour from 1 to 2. The governor soon, again, for her monthly visit. The mayor, the same for her monthly visit. So even if there wasn't this great gift today, as there is every day during Pledge, for $10 a month or $120 all at once, you get this great Eton Emergency Crank radio. If you listen to the station, which is free, and you like what you get, and you know it costs a ton of money, and that 70% of our financing comes from individual listeners, then I assume the conclusion you reach is you should give whatever you can. If you're not doing great financially right now, give $5 once, $5 a month. If you're doing well and you can afford it, give $100 a month, $1,000 a month, whatever you can do. It's simple. It only takes a second. It is huge help to us, and trust me, it'll feel pretty good to you. The number is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Well, when you think about it, I mean, we are free, right? If you don't have to pay for us, you can just tune in and listen to us. We are on 15 hours a week. The station is on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's a lot of time, and a lot of people are employed here to bring you this content for free. And I think, you know, a lot of people talk about how they don't trust the media, NPR is one of the most careful and I think trustworthy operations in the country. And we're all over the country and doing great work from coast to coast. So that's my little pitch about why you might want to throw some money toward us, because as we've said so many times, more than 70% of our money comes from small donations from the generosity of listeners like you. And my second favorite present is today. That is the Eton Crank Radio. That is great to have in an emergency when you are worrying about how to charge your cell phone, when you can't find your flashlight, when you need to get the weather report and you have no electricity to turn on your radio, or you can't turn on your cell phone because the battery is dead. You can use the Eton Crank Radio for all these emergencies and get the National Weather Service, which, of course, if you're in a weather emergency, is a big deal. So it's one of those just all-purpose emergency items that you can have next to your first aid kit, or wherever you do, where you put your gallons of water, whatever you put aside for emergencies.
Glove compartment's a good place too, by the way.
That's right. Yeah. It's small enough. It's a very good point. You can put it in the glove compartment.
Thank you very much.
Oh gosh, that's a good thing if you're in some emergency and you're running out of gas.
Exactly.
Right? I didn't think of that, Jim.
Or your battery dies and you can't charge your cell phone, which also died. Thank you, Marjorie. I've thought a lot about this.
So the Eton Crank Radio, it's a versatile little item. It's really kind of cute. Jim has the white one today. I've seen the red one. They're all very attractive and very small. So anyway, here's the number again. If you care to contribute to the radio that you are getting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week here at GBH Boston. And the number is, again, 888-897-9424. You can give securely at gbhnews.org, and we very much appreciate anything anybody can give us.
Give us an update.
Trusted, local, news. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
Welcome Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We are live at the Boston Public Library. I'm Jim Browdy. She is Marjorie Egan, feeling a little bit under the weather, so she's home today, but she's doing better. We're streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. The Attorney General is delayed a few minutes. She should be here in 5 or 6 minutes. With your permission, Marjorie, only because it'll make me feel better.
Yep.
While we're waiting for Andrea Campbell, can we talk for a minute? Because my head is ready to pop off about this Ginny Thomas thing. And by the way, we only have a few minutes till she gets here. If you want to call and see if you're on my side, well, I can't imagine anyone not being on my side other than Clarence Thomas, at 877-301-8970. Almost every day we have, thanks to ProPublica and other media outlets, we've learned of the, and I use this word very intentionally, the corruption. Maybe it's not illegal. Maybe it's not in violation of regulations, because there are virtually none ethically for the Supreme Court. Another grift by the Thomas family. The most recent one we heard is her getting paid tens of thousands of dollars through a nonprofit that Kellyanne Conway, went on to be Trump's campaign manager, was running. Leonard Leo, the head of the Federalist Society, said, send her, I think one check was 25 grand. Don't put her name on it. And, oh, and by the way, the organization, the nonprofit that was giving her the tens of thousands of dollars, including the 25 grand, has an amicus before, a friend of the court brief, before the Supreme Court, on which her husband sits. And then Leonard Leo, when he's contacted, is the Washington Post and the New York Times, I forget, in the story, has the audacity to say the reason they didn't disclose her name is because they're harassed. They don't want to protect the privacy of the family, which is, I assume, why he didn't disclose that his de facto son's private school tuition of $6,000 a month was being paid for by a billionaire GOP contributor, that his mother's house was bought, that he went on a $500,000 trip on a private yacht and a private plane, not to mention others. And finally, and then I'll stop because I can't breathe this long, the fact that this woman was lobbying the chief of staff to the president of the United States, Mark Meadows, working for Trump, and individual legislators, I think in Arizona and Wisconsin, I'm not sure what the states were, to essentially overturn a Democratic election. She was an insurrectionist, and not only does he contend he doesn't know anything, what a coincidence. He's the only vote out of 9 on the Supreme Court that attempts to not allow the January 6th committee to have the records, which proved that she was participating or urging an insurrection to be led by these legislators in Mark Meadows. It is just unbelievable to me.
Well, you know, I have repeated that quote from Maya Angelou so many times because it works in so many areas of your life. When someone shows you who they are, believe them.
Believe it.
And I remember
great.
seeing him back in 92. I think it was 92. Maybe it was 92, or was it 91?
I mean, the hearing you're talking about.
The Anita Hill hearings. Yeah. When you saw her come in with her mother and father and tell a totally credible story that, you know, millions of women can relate to about their bosses' horrible conduct toward them, and then you saw him come in and bluster and talk about high-tech lynching, right. And he was so outraged, and he was so, and to me, way back when, he was lying through his teeth about Anita Hill, and I don't think he's a man of, he went up to Holy Cross there. I guess his Catholic education didn't do him too much good in terms of being honest about what he's done with his life. I mean, and other people, including Jane Mayer, who we were lucky enough to see the other night, Jim, when we did an event for the Boston Public Library, she's talked to other women who post Anita Hill. You know, at dinner parties, there was a woman that he was grabbing at a dinner party. They did a lot of reporting. They did reporting about the other women who were not allowed to testify at the Anita Hill hearings because Joe Biden shut the hearings down.
He was chair of the committee then. That's right.
So, and you know, the fact that his wife would call up Anita Hill on the phone and ask her to apologize for what she'd done to her husband. I mean, these are not people that I would say they're not people of high moral character. You know what I mean?
Well, you have actually a high-ranking official who you can ask about this very issue in about 30 seconds. While we're waiting for the Attorney General to get mic'd up, can I just say one more thing? We're getting texts from people who heard those brilliant performers sing 2 songs from Omar earlier in the show. This is about this Islamic scholar who is ripped away from his family and friends in Africa and brought to the United States and enslaved for maybe 6 decades. Sadly, the show at the Emerson Cutler Majestic, which I saw last night, that is brilliant,
totally
is sold out.
Yeah.
You can do 2 things. One, you can go on our podcast and hear the 2 brilliant performers who sang for us earlier today. Or you can wait till CRB, our sister operation, is going to be broadcasting the whole thing. There's not a date yet, but that's coming. But I think both Margie and I urge you to get it any way you can. Joining us now at the Boston Public Library in person for her monthly visit for Ask the Attorney General is the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell. Nice to see you, Attorney General. How are you?
Great to see you. I'm doing great.
If you want to
Hello, everyone.
Hi there. If you want to get through to the Attorney General, you can call or text at 877-301-8970. Or if you're at the library, Nicole, do you want to raise your hand? Our coworker, Nicole, if you've got a question, do you have to put it on a piece of paper? How do they do? Put it on a piece of paper? Yeah, they do. There's a piece of paper, a card you'll get. Fill it out. We can't get to all of them. We'll get to some of them. And you can eyeball the Attorney General directly and ask her a question. Nice to see you, Attorney General. How are
It's great to
you?
see you. I'm doing great.
Great. Good to have you.
Thank you so much for being here. And Attorney General, I
Great to
apologize.
hear
I'm a
your
little bit
voice.
under the weather, so I'm not there today. I apologize. But, before you came, we were talking about the latest revelations about Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, news that Leonard Leo, who's from the Federal Society that has kind of been the group pumping conservative justices into the Supreme Court, arranged for Ginny Thomas to get a $25,000 payment, which was not revealed in any of their financial disclosures. And this is on top of his taking a $500,000 vacation with a Republican donor who is a big supporter of a lot of conservative issues, the kind that might come before the Supreme Court, and the private jets and the payments for Thomas's grandnephew's private schools, $6,000 a month, and on and on and on and on. And I'm just wondering, you're an attorney and you're the chief law enforcement officer in the land now. Can this stand? Can he stay on the Supreme Court and have people have confidence in their decisions?
Well, I think just even taking a step back, there's obviously been concern about the Supreme Court and just the decisions that have come out in the context of the environment, guns, just some abortion, obviously. Decisions that fly in the face of legal precedent. So there have been concerns about just the integrity and the credibility of the court for some time. I think you add these ethical issues and clear ethical violations by any legal standard in which we as elected officials, including in Massachusetts, we have some very progressive laws when it comes to this, have to operate by. I'm really concerned. And so I know that the federal delegation and others are actively working on ways in which to change our laws so they are applicable to our Supreme Court justices. But I have major concerns as well.
Two questions about this. Ed Markey was here, who obviously is intimately involved in these issues, the senator, as was Maura Healey, the governor. Both of them told us on the show they thought Thomas should resign. Do you agree with them?
I probably thought he should have resigned a long time ago, but yes.
Okay, and
I have to say, I obviously on my way here was listening to you guys, and I think Marjorie said it well, and I'm a huge fan of Maya Angelou. There over the years and decades, he has revealed many things about his character and things that are completely flawed, and I think get in the way of objectivity and being a justice on the highest court of the land. So I think we've seen enough. And this, of course, this is supposed to be also the people's court in many ways. And you continue to lose trust and credibility with the actions that we're seeing from this justice.
One last about this topic, and by the way, the numbers are 877-301-8970 and start lining up. We'll get to you in a minute. We were talking about how disappointed, and that's an understatement, Marjorie and I were, by the fact that the three liberal justices signed on to that insane statement from the Chief Justice last week, basically saying to the Senate, no problem here, everything's fine, we're policing ourselves fine. I'm appalled, frankly, that the three liberal justices are silent, which in this case, when you have a corrupt justice, which I think Thomas is essentially complicity. Does it trouble you that they've not said a word about the behavior of Thomas and his wife?
Yes, I'm troubled. I wish I could say I'm surprised. I'm not. I feel like I'm just not surprised anymore. I think if you're in the weeds and reading decisions coming from the court, if you're looking at the culture in which the court is operating, it's disappointing. But obviously, we are busy in Massachusetts and focusing on a lot of things that our office is doing every single day to help people. So I don't want to get distracted too much by what's happening at the court. I know we can weigh in quickly, but at the end of the day, we have a lot of work to do here. And so rather than exert my
That's
energy,
the Attorney General saying, Jim and Marjorie, ask me about what I'm doing.
ask me about what the team is doing, what the folks in this office are doing every day.
Thank you. Well put. Very gentle.
Well, let's get back to Massachusetts. And Andrea Campbell, you make a very good point, Attorney General. A lot of women and men are very concerned about the future of abortion rights in the country. And what can you tell people about Massachusetts in terms of our ability or lack of ability to protect abortion rights here going forward?
We're doing significant work in this space, and I'm really proud of the team. We're prioritizing the issue, obviously, where we're showing up here in Massachusetts to make sure folks know that we have some of the most progressive laws on the books. We have codified, and kudos to the legislature for thinking ahead, the right to an abortion. We have the strongest shield law in the country protecting our providers and patients. We've set up a hotline where people can call a number and get their questions answered with respect to any issues or concerns they have about this. And I'll quickly say it. It's 833-309-6301. We set that up in partnership with Reproductive Equity Now, the ACLU, law firms, the Women's Bar Foundation, so many. So 833-309-6301. So we're on the front lines here in Massachusetts, but we're also on the front lines nationally. We're taking what we're doing here to the national landscape, which is really important. And so we're not slowing down. We're fighting, of course, for access to medicated abortion too, but a lot in this space. And we also have a posting right now to establish a reproductive justice unit. And we've been encouraging people to apply to be the director of that unit, which is designed to have this conversation around reproductive justice and the intersectionality of these issues across the entire office. To have this unit led by someone who truly understands that will be really great for the office and, of course, our national leadership.
You know, one last local thing. I believe you want to discuss things about Massachusetts. Is that correct, Attorney General?
I do.
Okay, fine.
But I also want to go ahead, and then I also want to.
What are you about to ask us a question? What are you going to do here?
No, I just want to read something. So I was telling the team this. We have obviously several bureaus and divisions in the office, and that could take a whole hour to talk about all that they do and the teams that do that work every single day. One of our largest bureaus is Public Protection and the Advocacy Bureau, and our bureau chief, Cindy Mark, sends out an email. You can't have it. It's internal. But it just highlights all that the Bureau is doing across all the divisions. And I wanted to just read a couple or a few, because I think it really speaks to the broad landscape of what this office does every single day, particularly to put money back into the pockets of workers. So we had, for example, our Civil Rights Division, which does a whole bunch of fair housing conferences, and it's showing up in that space. But specifically, one of our team members resolved a fair housing complaint by an individual against a sublessor who had discriminated against her on the basis of race. In our car division, and I know they've appeared on the radio to talk about used car dealerships and landlord-tenant relationships, but we had, in addition to the competitive electric report we'll talk about, but we had a staff member who recently secured over $10,000 in relief and credit repair for a consumer who waited for months for the title to her purchased vehicle that was sold to her by an online used car company. I want to keep going because there's a couple more that I think are worth highlighting that are really important. We had a couple of folks on the team who were constantly within our Fair Labor Division, helping folks get access to the wages they were denied. And in this particular case, it was a construction company that was found to have violated our prevailing wage statute. And so they were cited for almost $12,000 in restitution for one single worker. And so the list is long, and I can keep going. I'll just end with a team member who helped a senior teacher consolidate her ineligible FFEL program loans in the fall, of course, to access a limited PSLF waiver. The borrower finally received nearly $60,000 in forgiveness. And so the office every single day is doing significant work, not only to protect our rights at that national level, but the mundane things that we often forget about. They are putting money back into the pockets of workers, of teachers every single day. And then we'll talk about some of the larger policy and settlements. I know we'll get to those things, but I wanted to name that because I think people often see the office as a top cop only in the context of crime and safety, or even just in the context of the Supreme Court. The constituent services work is significant, it is real. Martin's here from the office to make sure we can follow up with folks as well. So I just wanted to name, just to highlight a few of the things that make me so happy to serve as the Attorney General of the Commonwealth.
Well, let's stay with that theme for 1 second, then we will get to the calls at 877-301-8970. You mentioned a couple times there, Attorney General, the services you're providing to put money into the pockets of people. Let's talk about something the state is about to do to take money out of the pockets of people. Putting the lottery online. The lottery, and I'm sure you know this, is an incredibly regressive way of raising money. Poor people spend a far higher percentage of their income, astronomically higher than wealthy people do. We fund cities and towns with that. We asked Governor Healy, I think a couple of weeks ago, about where she was on the whole issue of allowing the lottery to go online, which means you can sit on your couch and lose your money as opposed to going to a 7. Well, I mean, you do lose your money or the state wouldn't make money. Here's what Governor Healy had to say. Well, I guess I asked the question, then Governor Healy responds. Do you support putting the lottery online?
You're going to be shocked to hear this, Jim, but I do. We have casinos in the state. We also have DraftKings here in the state. What we also have is a lottery system that right now isn't able to compete against a DraftKings. And nothing against DraftKings, but the lottery, that's money coming back to cities and towns. The money spent on DraftKings is going to DraftKings.
Okay, so let me quote somebody I know you respect on the issue of the lottery. Here she is. We already know it can be an area that can lead to addiction and, of course, addictive use, which can lead to mental health concerns, substance use disorder, you name it. And so our job is to protect the consumers. You know who that is?
Yes.
You.
Exactly.
So if you believe that, why should we make it even easier for people to lose their money, Attorney General?
So I am... I'm careful because, on the one hand, I'm not opposed to an online lottery. We do have, obviously, right now, you could go on your phone sitting anywhere and place an online bet in the context of sports. But what I am concerned about, and this is an active debate in the legislature, and so I want to stress, it should not, an online lottery should not be permitted to happen unless it's done safely and responsibly. And what we're finding in the sports gaming context, it was rolled out, of course. We're not opposed to the law, but there's still significant work to do to make sure that it is done safely and responsibly, to make sure that youth are not accessing these applications and, of course, placing bets when they're legally are not allowed to do so. We want to make sure the apps themselves are designed in such a way that it does not encourage reckless behavior in terms of betting and further addiction. We want to make sure that privacy concerns, what are they doing with your data, that the operators are answering those questions. We also want to make sure, of course, that they are not paying influencers or third-party advertisers to get folks to place specific bets that they know are losing bets.
Well, that's exactly what they were allowed to do with sports betting by the legislature.
People are profiting off of that. So we are working with the Gaming Commission every single day on putting in some of these safeguards. And until the online lottery conversations is explicit about what those safeguards will be, because we want to be preventative and proactive in preventing a public health crisis. We have work still to do in this regard when it comes to the online lottery proposition.
So you only support it if those safeguards are put in. Is that
Absolutely.
a fair statement? Fair enough.
And we have something we're learning from. We're actively working on this issue in the context of sports betting, and we still have a lot more work to do to make sure those regulations are protecting consumers. Yes, it's about money to the state, but our job in the AG's office is to protect our consumers and to make sure we're not, of course, contributing to addiction.
But let me be concrete since you mentioned influencers. Let's assume both the legislature and the Gaming Commission allow the exact same kind of ads where Rob Gronkowski and other superstars say, go to DraftKings, go, I don't even know, MGM, etc. If that was allowed in terms of online lottery, would you oppose the legislation?
We would be similar to what we're saying in the context of sports betting. That we're not, of course, people use various influence and folks to market and to advertise their products. Small business owners do the same thing in many ways. But where we have a concern is where these individuals or these influencers are being used to push specific bets, or being used to encourage certain type of behavior that we know is at the detriment of a consumer, namely them losing their money. And so that is a real concern where the Gaming Commission and our office will continue to advocate and work on, along with all the other pieces. And at the end of the day, technology is in the news every single day. We have a data privacy division led by Jared, who is amazing in the office, doing significant work. And so there's an expertise that we can bring to this conversation around the online lottery based on the context of sports betting, and we want to be helpful.
We're talking to the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, Andrea Campbell. You can reach her at 877-301-8970.
Marjorie, I just have to say, you kind of have a glow, or I don't know if it's black and white on the screen, and like I don't know if it's the blur or not, but
I'm really swollen.
It looks like an artist.
Well, thank
landscape.
you. Well, I have it in black and white instead of in color because the color picture is not a pretty picture, Attorney General. So that's why I'm in black and white.
Well, it looks great, and it's good to see you.
But anyway, I wanted to take this text because I thought this was illegal now in the Commonwealth, but I could be wrong. This is from Brian and Holden. He says, my wife and I have both received anesthesiologist bills, about $500 each. I had a procedure a few months ago. She had surgery last month. These bills were not in our estimates. Is there anything we can do about this? I thought you had to notify people of out-of-network physicians, particularly anesthesiologists, but maybe I'm wrong.
A lot of it depends on who your insurance provider is, your carrier is, your deductible. There's a lot at play, but if Brian stays on, Martin, who's here with me from the team, can make sure we get his contact information and can follow up with you, Brian.
I've got his number, and I'll save it to give to you guys.
Let's take some calls. Thomas and Quincy, you're on first. I'm sorry.
Lady and gentlemen, excuse me. I can't say that either. Whoops. Attorney General and Jim Browdy.
Okay, thank you. First up is Thomas and Quincy on with Andrea Campbell, the Attorney General. Welcome, Thomas.
Hi, welcome everybody. Good
Hi.
afternoon. My question is, so I saw this article in the Patriot Ledger the other day about this police officer in Weymouth who, it seems like he resigned ahead of what it would have been like a termination hearing or something, basically due to excessive force during an arrest. So I guess I'm wondering if the Attorney General could explain to us, like, what are the rules and procedures in place to prevent police officers who have excessive force complaints and stuff from being hired at other departments just out of their town, and whether she thinks that those processes are sufficient.
Thank you, Thomas. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Thomas. No, we have more work to do in this regard. A couple of things. We obviously have the Post Commission here in Massachusetts, and our office has met with them. I've met with them, and we continue to remain in contact with them. This commission is really designed and set up to take on a whole bunch of things, but including cases involving individual officers where folks feel as though there has been some misconduct or some violation of some sort. And the Post Commission obviously has a lot of responsibilities, but we really view them as the commission and the body to exercise decertification of officers and to make sure that they cannot be employed somewhere else if they are found of wrongdoing. What we're actively setting up in our office is the Police Accountability Unit. The recent police reform laws gave the AG's office significant authority and power when it comes to pattern and practices investigations. We have some lawyers in our Civil Rights Division working on some cases, but very small scale. And what I mean by that is we are just not set up adequately with the resources and everything we need to really maximize the authority that was given to us to make a difference. We want to change that. So the Police Accountability Unit is actually posted now. We're looking for a director of that unit so that we can take on the systemic issues that we're seeing in police departments across the Commonwealth in different places with the hopes of being able to change policies, et cetera, so there is no excessive force, there is no racial profiling, there is no misconduct or anything else that is suspect And we're doing that and having those conversations with law enforcement and others to get that off the ground.
Thomas, thank you for the call. Very quick follow-up question. We've discussed with Mayor Wu how long it takes internal affairs of the Boston Police Department to ever make a decision. There's this guy, Pepperjack Danilecki, who's got tons of complaints against him, virtually none sustained. He charged for, there's a pending thing around excessive violence. Do you have any ability, if you believe that an individual jurisdiction, city or town, is not fairly, equitably proceeding on a complaint against an officer, to intervene, or is that all a local deal?
Not always. It's not always a local deal. And we have folks who reach out who maybe think that something wasn't handled properly within the municipality. Most of the conversations now is if we're doing anything in this context is in partnership with the municipality that's finding something disturbing within not just a police department, any part of their operation. And I think there's a role that we can play. But why we want to get this police accountability unit off the ground is the issues that we say we see in Boston also show up in other parts of the state too. I remember having a conversation, and I was having a conversation this morning about the great municipality of Leiden and some concerns out there in their community with respect to public safety issues, which is a more rural community in the Commonwealth. So we have this ability, because we're sitting at the state level, to really look at ways in which to have the systemic conversations, including in our gateway communities and others, to work with our law enforcement to make sure that the resources they need to do their jobs, also to talk about ways to address mental health cases or something else, and then, of course, to hold folks accountable. And there's a lot our office can do, and we're looking forward to doing it through this unit and looking for a really talented director.
Hillary in Cambridge, you're next with the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell. Hi.
Hi. Thank you very much, Ms. Campbell, for all your hard work.
Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you. I have a daughter who has some medical disability, and she attends Massachusetts University, which is violating her rights under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And they claim that they're doing what the Department of Education on the federal level tells them to do. So I'm trying to figure out where I turn. Do I turn to your office? Do I turn to the federal level? What do I do?
You should stay on the line and talk to Martin, who's going to take your information, and we can have a deeper conversation, get more of the facts, and it may be appropriate where we could do something, or of course connect with federal authorities in some way. So stay on the line. Let's get your information, and we will follow up to make it easier for you to navigate some of these processes and systems.
Hillary, don't go away. Hillary, don't go away. One of our
thanks.
producers will get the information and pass it along. Go ahead, Marjorie. I'm sorry.
Attorney General, we have a lot of texters that are concerned about their electric bills. And
They should be.
Yeah, I know you're doing something about public utilities, so explain what's happening.
They should be, and what I mean by that is not if you get if your utility company provides your electricity. I think, obviously, as we move toward a clean energy economy, and we want to make sure that people are a part of that, the biggest piece of this is making sure that no community is left behind, because then you bear the brunt of it in your bills. You're paying more as more folks are getting the infrastructure in their homes or something else to be able to adjust to this clean energy economy. And what we're seeing in the context of competitive electric suppliers is beyond concerning and really troubling. So the latest iteration of the report, which we just released earlier this week, it builds upon reports that came out previous. And I'm going to just read some numbers because it really speaks to and shows how vulnerable residents across Massachusetts are really being preyed upon by these competitive electric suppliers each year, and how they're losing tens of millions of dollars. And our latest numbers show that in a 6-year period between 2015 and 2021, competitive electric suppliers cost Massachusetts individual residential customers close to $525 million.
Wow.
Right now, over 430,000 residents are receiving their electricity from competitive electric suppliers. And on average, they're losing $231 a year, which means, and this is because they're getting their electricity from these companies, say, for example, compared to our traditional utilities. And that's the highest number we've seen, this loss of $231 a year. And this is disproportionately targeting residents in gateway communities, as far as Springfield, Berkshire County, as well as low-income residents, residents of color, and immigrant communities. These are the companies that go and bang on your door that maybe follow you when you're leaving your house to your car to get you to sign up. Sometimes they have been found to sign people up and transfer them from their traditional utility company without their knowledge. And so we have said enough is enough with this market. We have legislation right now and that we are pushing and working with. I'm going blank. Molly's going to yell it out. Rep. Balzer. And so I want to give credit to them because it's a joint effort as we are developing our legislative agenda to make sure that this market goes away. We've seen too many challenges in it. And so for those who are concerned, they should be. The report is online. You can continue to call our office if you have concerns about your individual bill and your individual contractual relationship. But we want to make sure that folks know about this report and the fact that people are losing money.
So when you get an email or a letter like we've all gotten saying you can save X dollars, it sounds like your advice is don't do it.
Sometimes things are too good to be true, right?
Okay, so are you moving against any of these people? I mean, it sounds to me like some of them are committing fraud. It sounds like a bait and switch.
So there's a two, maybe it's a three-pronged strategy. One is the legislative side is the legislation says we want to do away with these companies because we do not have enough resources in our office. They're time-sensitive investigations, almost like any, to go after all the companies that are doing this. Yes, we are taking on these companies, and we have been for some time as an office, so maybe that's the second prong. So legislative solution, going after the companies. And the last is the information piece, getting the reports out there, getting the information out through these channels, and encouraging people to call our office if they have a relationship so that we can review their contract and other things and see what we can do to help them. But it's really sad because you think about operators or businesses or new emerging companies that come up within a policy discussion under the auspices that they want to help and aren't necessarily doing that. And so one of our chief responsibilities is to protect consumers, and so we encourage folks to check out this report.
Can we, before we take a break, stay on energy for a second? I know you put out a report about...
I lied. Rep. Balzer, it's not Rep. Balzer. I'm working with Rep. Balzer on other things.
Sure you are.
Kudos to you, Rep.
Who's this one?
I'm working with Rep. Balzer on the nursing home legislation, which is important. This is Rep. Frank Moran and Senator Crichton.
Thank you.
From Lynn.
On the energy front, though, I can't tell you through the years how many people have called and said the DPU is like a rogue agency. We have no input. They don't listen to us. We've had attorneys general before you say they don't listen, even though we represent, I believe them, right? The attorney general represents the consumer in front of them.
That's right.
You put out something, I think in the last few days, which would hopefully make the process more accessible, more understandable, and mandate that the DPU-like agencies are more receptive to input from real people. I didn't phrase it well, but you know what I mean. What's the deal?
So continuing in the context of the environment, the DPU, which is the Department of Public Utilities, the Energy Facilities Siting Board, EFSB, the average person probably just said, what? Who are they? What do they do? They are critical. They are critical in determining where certain infrastructure goes in a community to help us, say, transition to clean energy, or to allow utilities to deliver a product to the state. And there has been and continues to be major concern around the communities that bear the brunt of most of this infrastructure. And for example, Chelsea. Are they at the table? Do they have a voice in the process with EFSB, with DPU, or others? In being able to come to the table before a decision is made and being able to inform what happens in their community or other environmental justice communities. And the short answer is no. And so kudos to the organizations that came together for the last 2 years to have deep conversations around expanding that public participation process to give specific recommendations on what these agencies can do. And I'm going to name them because we get the credit, but we're actually helping them get the word out and using our resources and our platform for their report. But it's the National Consumer Law Center, Green Roots, Alternatives for Community and Environment, the Conservation Law Foundation, Environmental Defense Fund, Vote Solar, the Massachusetts Climate Action Network, and the Regulatory Assistance Project. All of these folks made up the stakeholder working group and continue to get out there to talk about ways to, for example, when these agencies are providing decisions, do it in plain language, plain English, so people who are reading it can understand. It's critical. on your website, make it so that people can understand all that's on the website. Also, certain positions in human capital around public participation, critically important. So there are specific recommendations in this report. I encourage folks to check it out.
I read the recommendations. Before you break briefly, my only problem is not with the recommendations themselves, but and correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney General, the agencies that are not very amenable to meaningful input are the same agencies that have to agree to your recommendations so that there is meaningful input. I mean, why would we trust them to change themselves?
Well, I'm confident with our new governor, with our new Secretary of Energy, Rebecca Tepper, who just left the AG's office, with our new DPU commissioner and who was a part of this process. Some of the new leadership up there were actually some of the stakeholders who put together this report. I'm confident they're going to adopt these recommendations, and we're going to do everything in our power to increase the transparency and accessibility of these agencies and of information, and work with these stakeholders to get it done.
We'll take a break.
We're talking to the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, Andrea Campbell. She's going to be with us almost to the top of the hour. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And the Boston Speakers Series, announcing its upcoming season at Symphony Hall for 7 evenings, featuring Jane Fonda, Van Jones, Dr. Laurie Santos of the Happiness Lab, and explorer Celine Cousteau. bostonspeakers.org. And Grogan & Company, fine art and jewelry auctioneers, assisting New England families with the sale of their fine paintings and jewelry since 1987. You can learn more about their spring auction season at their Beacon Hill Gallery or at groganco.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan. We're live at the library. The Attorney General is kind enough to join us, as she does every month, for an hour of Ask the Attorney General. And speaking of, there was a young high school student, I feel really bad, who had to leave, who was waiting in the audience. And her name is Alexa, if you're listening. She wanted to know what your office is doing to reach out to young people to get involved with the work you and your colleagues are doing. What are you doing?
Oh, I wish we got her. Did we get her contact information?
I don't think so, but hopefully she's listening.
We did?
Alexa,
Okay.
we did? Great.
This is great. Your team is great. So
Great.
we're going to follow up with Alexa because
Wonderful.
This is an ongoing conversation, particularly as we say we're going to prioritize the mental health and the physical and emotional well-being of our youth. We're doing a lot in this space. We had the huge Juul settlement, of course. We're looking at social media.
Vaping people. Yeah.
The social media companies and the effect they're having on the mental health of our young people, including young girls, and the uptick in depression and anxiety we're seeing, how hard it is to access a mental health provider if you're a young person who is struggling or a parent who is trying to find support for your children. So a lot. But the question I asked for the team, and I was just going back and forth with Liza, who runs our Children's Justice Unit, and other team members, and we have a Children's Justice Unit in the office. How do we make sure we have youth voice? And so whether we have to hire someone to help us do that, establish some infrastructure, we're actively working on that, so we'd love her ideas, so we'll follow up with her.
That's
for
fabulous.
Sure.
That's great
It's
to
a
hear.
critical part. We're talking about youth, but are they at the table? We can change that.
I want to read a text. I hadn't heard about this, Attorney General. Maybe you have. This is from Patty, who says, what is going on with all the food stamps that were stolen and not reimbursed? She said she called and changed her PIN, checked her balance, which was $400 in March. Then her stamps were stolen 10 minutes later by someone from New York. She's not received any reimbursement and had to go without food that month for most of the month. Do you know anything about this?
Patty
People
should call
stealing?
our office. Is she?
Okay.
You said
I've
she's
got her
texting.
number.
Yes, if we could pass it on to Martin, we will follow up on that.
Okay.
I don't know much about this right now.
Does Martin do all the work in the office, or
He
what's
does.
the deal?
Yeah, I just show
So why
up.
are we talking to him instead of you? What's
He
the
can sit over here too. Well, I will say this is why I give. The organization is close
No,
to
you're very
600,
good about
600
this. I was
people.
just joking.
But it's critical because my name may be on the paper and the door, and of course I'm out there fighting for us every day. And the voters voted for me, but I work with a team who I can't tell you is so passionate about what they do every day. So Martin is one of those team members who will follow up, and we'll make sure that Patty gets to the
Great.
appropriate division.
Suze, you're in Framingham. You're on with the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell. Welcome, Suze.
Thank you. My question is regarding the Harvard Pilgrim insurance situation. They were hit by a ransomware attack on April 17th. There's barely been any coverage of that.
That's a great
It's
point.
been down since then. Their whole website, you can't get through to them. I believe they're the third biggest insurer. This is affecting thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, including state employees. There's very little coverage of it, except I do note that our Henry Santoro did mention it. What can the Attorney General office do to help not just the state employees, but people like me who recently had to change to Harvard Pilgrim, and I can't get any information from them?
That's is it Suze?
Suze, yes.
Suze. Yes, thank you for calling. This is, I think we've gotten one complaint on this. We're following it, and I mentioned Jared earlier, who runs our data privacy team, where these issues come up quite a bit, not just in the context of this particular company. So if you could stay on and we could get your specific contact, that division can certainly follow up and resolve whatever it is you're dealing with, hopefully. And then, of course, on the larger issues, we will work on that. And I'll just add, we also have a healthcare division as well in the office that is intimately connected and involved in these issues. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention them. So many of the divisions work hand in hand. So please stay on the line. We'll get your contact information and go from there.
Suze, thanks for the call. You know, Attorney General, the other day at the SJC, State's highest court, ruled, I think 5-2, that nearly 8 years of breathalyzer tests couldn't be used in drunk driving prosecutions. And please correct me if I'm wrong, because I may be. Unlike the drug lab cases, where ultimately they were thrown out en masse, here I believe individuals who were convicted, in part at least, as a result of these tests that have been ruled improper or unreliable, have to individually move to overturn the conviction, which is a hell of a burden. And I understand that the argument on the other side is they may have been convicted for other reasons. Where's your office on this? I mean, people are busy. Most people can't afford a lawyer to begin with. Why not err on the other side and the default position be all of them will be dismissed unless individual prosecutors make a motion before the court to let the conviction stand? Do you understand my point? I don't know if I articulated it well.
I don't know if you did.
Why shouldn't there be more of a blanket dismissal of these cases where there were wrongful use of or unreliable use of the breathalyzer, rather than having people who are the victims of that in individual cases have to challenge their convictions?
I understand. First, I don't want to take a position because we are still looking at this. We're obviously working with the district attorneys.
Okay.
And I never want to get ahead of those conversations and their perspectives on them. We have seen in other contexts when there may be more of a universal policy issue that not every DA agrees. And so we'll remain in communication on them. We obviously don't want things to become more burdensome, but we also want to respect their jurisdiction and have a conversation.
Are you at least troubled by the concept of individuals who were breathalyzer tests that were inappropriate, were at least part, if not all, of the basis for the conviction? Having, again, have to know there's a problem, which a lot of people don't follow the news, have to then find a lawyer, have to then file. Is that at least some concerns you?
It sounds like you have a lot of concerns about this.
How about you? It doesn't matter what I think.
Somewhat. I mean, I think this is why we have the conversations we have. I mean, obviously there's many decisions that come from the SJC, and for those that warrant a follow-up conversation, and we have them.
Okay, fair enough. We're talking to the Attorney General.
Laura from Walden, you're on with Andrea Campbell.
Hi, Laura.
Laura.
Hi, thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much, AT. I'm so grateful for your stances on reproductive justice and many other important issues. I hope you'll be an equally strong advocate on the intersectional disability justice issue of safe access to health care, which is protected by the ADA. Hospitals across the Commonwealth are ending universal mask requirements and testing in healthcare. That is policy-level discrimination against a protected class of people, disabled people and elders. People don't live in bubbles. They could get COVID from another person in their household, and everyone is at risk of long COVID, which is disabling nearly 200,000 people in Massachusetts. The decision that people will be admitted to hospital for regular procedures like surgeries, heart attacks, or to have a baby will be exposed to COVID by other people in the hospital or even healthcare workers. Also, there's the issue of hospital profits. Hospitals make a lot of money on procedures. If they don't have to control or track COVID, they can make more money in the short term anyway because they don't have to cancel procedures for COVID-positive patients. Of course, in the middle and long term, this will exacerbate the existing health worker shortage. Hospitals in Boston have been privately lobbying DPH to end infection control measures amid an unprecedented budget crisis.
Laura, what's
My
your question?
for
Thank you.
Yeah, is do you think it's important to keep our most vulnerable people safe in the hospital? Will you protect us from the hospitals who seem more worried about profits than protecting the people of the Commonwealth?
We got it.
How
We got
will
it.
you protect us
We got
from
it.
this?
No, you made your point. Let's have the Attorney General respond,
Every
Laura.
day, I, along with the team, of course, are fighting to protect our most vulnerable. I think, frankly, that's the mission of the office, especially for those who can't afford a lawyer, who don't have the power in the relationship to determine certain things. So it is our most vulnerable. We are actively following these conversations. Much of course, these are new developments that are coming out in terms of what the protocol will be with respect to healthcare. Internally, of course, we've had similar conversations as the federal government gets away with certain COVID protections and the public health emergency, which this is all tied to, and the state, of course, followed suit based on what the federal government did. In our office, we're also following the same thing. I do think at the end of the day, we'll stay in conversation. I know personally when I go to certain places, I mask up. Even if I'm the only one in the space for different reasons, because of different concerns. And so I remind people of that. When people say we're sort of beyond COVID, I say I've talked to folks recently who have COVID. So clearly we're not beyond COVID. And so we'll continue to follow the conversation. It is tied with this public health emergency, though, which was made by the federal government first, which I think can make things a bit challenging. But we can work with various institutions to see what we can do to be helpful.
Laura, thanks for your call. We appreciate it.
We have a good text here from two young people. Dear Attorney General Campbell, my sister and I are teenagers and concerned that state agencies are funding new school buildings without taking into account environmental impacts. One in point is the new Northeast Metro Tech School, which involves blasting around 5 million cubic feet of bedrock and destroying the forested habitat of two state-listed species, even though there are better site options. What will your office do to address this issue and protect our forests? This is from two sisters, Arav and Aranya.
They should follow up with us to get more details. That we are taking on these types of cases every day, whether it's this, a lot related to asbestos, for example,
Yes.
a lot of complaints with the construction companies or subcontractors who are not discarding asbestos in the way that is in line with, of course, how they're supposed to do, according to our laws, to protect the environment. Workers who are going into conditions and they are unaware of what is happening with respect to, they're unaware of asbestos or other things that may be there present. And so it's a worker issue, it's a consumer issue, it's also an environmental issue. So if they could follow up, we can specifically look into what they're talking about related to the school projects.
We only have a minute or so left. John from Danvers asked about what you do to enforce campaign finance violations. And I mean this respectfully, but at least seems to me, in the years I've lived in Massachusetts, campaign finance violations alleged by the Office of Campaign and Political Finance generally go to the Attorney General's office to die, and they almost never get prosecuted. There's a story in a Globe editorial the other day about this Representative Fatman. His wife is running for some public office. He's entitled to give $100. Instead, he gives $137,000 to the state Republican Party, which coincidentally gives almost the exact same amount of money to his wife's campaign. There are the multiple, at least appears to me, criminal actions around campaign finance on the part of the former chair of the Republican State Committee, Jim Lyons. They're in your office. I believe they've been referred to you. What's the status of these?
So the thing is, because they are active investigations, I can't comment because they are in process, but I want to take a step back. We will absolutely prioritize whether it is public corruption, white-collar crime, which also people view as not being prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, the disparities in how we approach these types of crimes. And so we get referrals from OCPF, and when we get those referrals, we investigate them, whether in our Crim Bureau or also other divisions looking at the civil side with them. And so people will hear from us when we complete an investigation, regardless of the outcome and the path
Even if
we
you clear
take,
them.
we will say publicly why.
Great.
That, I think, is
That's
important
huge.
and is a part that is missing. Sometimes the laws are there for us, and sometimes they're not. But any investigation that we have in this context, we will investigate fully, and the public will be made aware of why we got to a decision and why we proceeded or why we didn't. That will be made public.
Do we ask you enough questions about what you do for work?
I think you did.
I have a
Because we're out of
question.
time. We're out of
I have
time,
a question,
Marjorie.
really quick. Attorney General, you said the two teenagers concerned about the school should follow up. Where do they follow up? Or how do
With
they
Martin,
follow
if they
up?
stay on the line, we can get their contact.
You know what? Okay, I'll get their contact number because they left their number. So
and Martin
good.
we can follow up and direct them to the appropriate division.
Give your main number one more time. We're almost out of time.
617-727-8400.
Attorney General, we really appreciate it.
617-727-8400.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you so
for
much
having me.
for being with us, Attorney General. We very much appreciate it.
Thank
That was,
you.
of course, the Commonwealth's Attorney General, Chief Law Enforcement Person Andrea Campbell. We're very grateful to her for taking the time to be with us. You can keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast. Tune in Monday. We'll talk with Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Young, affordable housing advocate Bruce Marks, who's got a lot of information about buying a house, MacArthur Genius recipient Vijay Gupta, who's this season's artist in residence for Worcester Music. We'll also check in with the Reverends Irene Monroe and Emmett G. Price III for another edition of All Revved Up. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our engineer, John the Claw Parker, our executive producer, Jamie Bologna, and our BPL team, Kellen Cockrell, Evelyn Brito, and Sai Patel. Jim Browdy, thank you very much. Hope
Feel
you have a
better,
nice-
Marjorie. I hope
Thank
you
you
feel
very
better.
much. Hope you have a good weekend.
The Attorney General said she hopes you feel better, too.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you
Jim
very
Browdy.
much. I'm Marjorie Egan. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you can tune in on Monday. And like we said, meantime, you have a wonderful weekend.
Alrighty, you are listening to Boston Public Radio on GBH. It is just about 7 minutes before 2 o'clock, and we are here in our spring fund drive. I'm Sonia Lee with Mark Cohen, and this is your last opportunity here to support GBH and Boston Public Radio and get the Eton Emergency Radio. Marjorie's most favorite thank you gift of all time. You got 7 minutes left to get the Eton Emergency Radio as a thank you gift and support Boston Public Radio and Jim and Marjorie. You can make that contribution of $10 a month as a sustaining member or a one-time gift of $120 online. That's gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Yeah, we're done with our fundraising at 2 for the afternoon and for the weekend as well. So we want to end the hour strong. We're looking for 12 contributions to help us round out this hour, finish nice and strong. I'm sure Jim and Marjorie would appreciate that. And we're counting on you to do your part right now. Go to the phone, give as generously as your budget allows at 888-897-9424 or go online at gbhnews.org.
And I want to send a big thank you out.
Andreas Ottensamer performing the 7th Clarinet Concerto by Stamitz with the Chamber Academy Potsdam.
Tomorrow on GBH2, remember, nobody can say your guess is wrong when you're answering at home. Test your knowledge of just about everything with the exciting 14th season of High School Quiz Show. Tomorrow evening at 6 on GBH2.
Classical Radio Boston is WCRB-FM 99.5 HD1 Lowell, Boston.
WGBH-FM HD2 Boston, WCAI-FM HD2 Woods Hole, WJMF-FM Smithfield Providence, and at classical.org.
It's Friday. Good afternoon. Greg Farisi here with you. Thanks for having me. No Star Wars music today. That's the true Revenge of the Fifth, I guess. But later I do have Beethoven arranged by Liszt, also Mozart's Kiegelstadt Trio, and the Violin Concerto by Tchaikovsky is on the way. First up, Three English Dances by Roger Quilter with Richard Hickox conducting the Northern Sinfonia of England.